taste sweet. Oh, but I hate that sadness in your eyes. Hey, Angie, oh, my pretty Angie. Oh, ain't it time that we've said goodbye? Oh, with no loving in our souls and no money in our coats. Oh, you can't say you were satisfied. And Angie, oh, I still love you. I love you, baby. And everywhere I look, I see your eyes. Oh, there ain't a woman that comes close to you, my Angie. And come on, baby, come on, dry those eyes. Hey, Angie, oh, my pretty Angie. Ain't it good to be alive? And Angie, you can't say we never tried.
Ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some band lab clips.
Now for me, that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can stretch. With this AI, like stretching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice. 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.
Welcome to a special Thanksgiving best of Talkin Shhh I.T. We're going to take a look at some of the things we've looked at over the past couple of months and some of our favorite videos, our favorite channels. We hope you enjoy. No Cash's version. So now we're going to shift over to some of the legal side and approach and get some advice from some of the legal music advisors out there on YouTube, which I think is an awesome resource. We're constantly looking for musical tips and tricks, but this is the kind of stuff that a lot of times you end up really having to pay for just to understand. So check out these resources on YouTube. It might save you a lot of money. And this one comes from Top Music Attorney, at Top Music Attorney on YouTube. Awesome great pick she got there. Miss Crystal. And she's live every Thursday too.
Nice.
Oh, well, now I know what I'm going to be doing before my show.
Heck yeah.
And she's an entertainment attorney, recording artist. Oh, she also is a musician, business instructor, podcaster. And looking at the videos, I almost put a couple of them up here. I could have run the rest of the episodes off of here because, I mean, everything we are always talking about.
Absolutely.
And you know, she's constantly putting them out, so she's staying on top of like what's going on. I really want to see what she thinks over the next couple of weeks, given how fast everything's changing. So this is how to legally do cover songs in 2023. You know, coming straight from an attorney, this is relevant. Music Business Podcast.
Sample meaning it's actually a thing from the original song. It's a vocal, it's instrumental, it's the guitar loop. There's something in your version that is from that actual song that's called a sample. You can't do that and you might get a strike. How to legally do cover songs. I'm an independent artist, I'm a record label owner, I'm an entertainment attorney, and I help people to build their music businesses. If that sounds good to you, please be sure to like this video, subscribe, let's jump into it. Cover songs are fantastic ways to market yourself. Okay, think about it. The way that this is working is we are giving someone something they already like, and then we're giving them an opportunity to hear your voice, your style, your production, to get to know you. So it's a very nice kind of soft way to get in their ear and they'll be like, oh my gosh, her voice is great. Oh my gosh, his, scream is great. I love this. And then they'll dive in a little bit deeper. What can happen with original music is that now you have to sell them on you as well as the thing, right? The song, the composition, all the stuff. So that's why cover songs are a really good marketing tool, helps you to build an audience. And so it's something that I've incorporated into my music career. I do it a lot, and I know a lot of people do it as well. So that's why we're doing this video. So in this video, I'm going to talk about getting the music on YouTube and DSPs, which are the music platforms. Okay, DSP is digital service provider, like Spotify. So wherever you're watching this, the information basically in the video is practical. How do we do it? But some of the stuff I do mention is subject to US copyright law. You still want to know all the stuff because this is how it works, like regardless of where you're at. Okay. How it works for YouTube. You post the video to YouTube. Okay. And you might be someone who just did a quick song in your bedroom, or you just did an acapella. Whatever your version of the cover song is, you do a video, you post it. You're going to get an email from YouTube saying, hey, this label, this publishing company is monetizing your video. Okay? That's usually all it is. Usually they're not getting strikes anymore. And I'll explain why. But what that means is that the label or the publishing company is going to collect your money. Okay? So sad face. You're not going to make money on the video, but you're also using someone else's song, technically without permission, right? So if it's a cover, usually, like I said, there's no problem. They're collecting. That's it. Now, if you sampled, that's where this gets really hairy and everyone should run out of the building that's on fire. If it's a sample, meaning it's actually a thing from the original song, it's a vocal, it's instrumental, it's the guitar loop, there's something in your version that is from that actual song that's called a sample, you can't do that and you might get a strike. Okay? It's a real no-no. You might get a block, you might get all kinds of bad things happening. I talk about the differences of sampling on the channel. Do some searches, you'll find some good stuff. So that's getting it on YouTube. When it comes to getting it on music platforms, we're going to register an account with a DIY music distribution company. It's going to be the ones I talk about a lot on the channel are CD Baby, TuneCore, DistroKid, and I've done, collabs and worked with a lot of these companies as an artist myself. Those are ones that are great. But in any case, the way it used to be, you get a mechanical license, right? So it's like an automatic license that allows us to do cover songs. We used to get them through Harry Fox Agency, through Easy Song licensing. And basically, if you went to a music distributor, often the music distributor would say, hey, you're doing a cover song. I need your mechanical license in order to distribute the song to all the music platforms. things have changed. It's easier. Keep watching. So now what's happened is there's an organization called the Mechanical Licensing Collective since January of 2021. This company basically is like making it rain with administrative blanket licensing with all of the platforms like Spotify, right? All the DSPs. And so basically they have a deal where they're like, we're going to have the deal with you platform to make sure that the publishers, the songwriters who made the actual songs that you're, covering, to make sure that they get paid. Because we're finding that people aren't getting the mechanical licenses and we need to make sure everyone gets paid. So, quick pro notes, if you are a songwriter and people using your songs, you got to make sure you're registered on the Mechanical Licensing Collective because that's how you get paid. But in any case, for the people making the cover songs, you don't need a mechanical license anymore. Yay. It just got a whole lot easier for us. The only exception is going to be if you're still making things like CDs or vinyls. Okay, it's not covered. You still got to get the license for that. For 99.9% of you, you're just releasing digitally. So it's already kind of done for you. Yay. Now, what about the video components, you ask? You didn't ask that, but you need to know this. So going back to the YouTube, you just upload it. It's a pretty easy process. No real problems are going to come up typically. But it's only because labels and publishers have deals with YouTube so that they collect your money. Because technically what you're supposed to do is to not only get the mechanical license, but you have to get what's called a synchronization license. So it says you got to take the song and you got to sync it to the video, which means you now need to get extra permission. And since no one's actually doing that, and it's easier for these companies to come and just collect your money, right? Because you're promoting their songs, that's what they've done. But you are technically supposed to be getting the sync licenses. Now, because most of the world, to promote their cover songs, to promote their music, are uploading these videos to YouTube, the fact that those agreements are in place is a great thing. It's going to help you stay protected so you're not going to get sued because, quite frankly, a lot of these labels aren't going to sue you because it's going to cost the label $50,000 to sue you, and then they're not going to be able to collect because, we're starving artists and we can't pay, right? So if you want to learn how to basically do all this stuff yourself to be your own label, right? I have a course. I'll help you out. I'll teach you how to become your own label. Link down in the description below.
Oh, more great info.
Lotta. I was gonna say, she talked about different ways to get your cover stuff out, the licensing that you need.
Well,
to use both
synchronization.
audio and video.
Synchronization license. Have you heard of that yet? That's a new one
I
for
had
me.
not.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, like, I know that some people like will take some videos, but not like the whole thing. You know what I mean? But a lot of times that's like, I knew there was a separate license for videos. I just didn't realize that artists were actually going ahead and taking like the original artist video and uploading it and claiming like.
Well, I've seen fan-based videos of songs where, somebody just wanted to do something creative visually to a song. And I wonder if that might fall under those situations.
Maybe. A lot of fan-based ones, though, they try and like TikTok will have like the stitch or duet, things of that sort. I just, usually the fans are in it. You know what I mean? Or there's something like written in it that says I'm a fan, or this is a fan video.
Yeah. If you put a good description up, hopefully that's your first point of attack in preventing having to explain later what you're doing. The more you give a detail of what you're doing, what you're covering, who it's by, the less they actually will give you crap.
Right.
Yeah.
And to answer Jason's question, he asked, but does she like metal? I do.
And does she get up in the morning? Because it's now metal mornings.
Yes. Best way to wake up.
So Miss Crystal,
Metal in your cup.
you can find her over at topmusicattorney.com and also at Top Music Attorney on YouTube. Again, this is a free legal advice resource that might save you a
Yes.
lot of money or pain in what you do out on these platforms.
And I'm gonna have to look into Easy Song because that's one that I did not hear about. I don't know if you've ever heard Easy Song, but she had mentioned that in the video as well. Like it did. I guess it covers just like Harry Fox. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I like when they point us in good directions like that.
That's right.
Yeah, we were in Zoom.
Settings.
We were in Zoom when we started, so it's our fault. Mea culpa. How about that?
There we go.
Thank you. Much better.
Now, yeah, you can bring the volume up a little. Let me.
Even when I'm up in here, like, is that
Oh,
too much? Or
no, there we go. My volume was down. Wow, Restream, what are you doing to me?
and see, this is how we solve problems. Can you hear me? Can I hear you? Can I hear me? Can you hear you?
Yeah, I hear
Making
you
sure
good
everything's
now.
working. All right.
And you
But
know
yes,
what's funny? That's what we're going to actually be talking about tonight is
indeed.
gear.
Mhm. The way to get
Gear
your sound.
Force.
The way to get your sound from the air into a computer or through a speaker in some way. Gear Wars.
And actually some of them are going to be about sound. Here, let me bring up what we do have lined up for tonight.
Mhm.
Um, a little bit of everything when it comes to gear. Some computer gear, musical gear for guitarists, for vocalists, even drummers tonight. We got some finger pad drums from Yamaha that we're going to be looking at.
Nice.
So, but you know the one I'm going to start with. I've been wanting to look at this one for a couple weeks now because I love my trackball. And for those of you who have never tried trackballs, when it comes to like music editing and video editing, I wouldn't use anything else. I mean, the mouse is okay, but trackballs really lend themselves to music. Yeah, yeah, that's the one. Oh, you got the nice one too. I still have a couple of old school ones with the red ball. Oh, your mic's gone. Yeah, your mic's
It
back.
clicked on the
Yep.
mute. Yeah, yeah.
There.
When I had the mouse upside down this way, the trackball like that, it started clicking. So that's why I usually don't invert the trackball while I'm talking about things. But yeah, the I have a blue one, I have a red one. Usually I always went with the wired ones. I never wanted to go with the wireless, but I mean, the one battery lasts for so long and it warns you so much ahead of time that it's really not an issue.
Yeah, I've actually gone over a year with most of these without a problem.
Yeah, they have really good intelligent shut off, and they're sending such a small amount of data back and forth anyway that it's really no big deal.
So we're going to see what options in 2023 that they have for trackballs, and
Mhm.
I'm expecting that like my Logitech is going to be high up there in that list.
The TrackMan, it's a classic.
Yep. And we're going with our science, like we did last week. Oh, gotta.
It started up on you.
I had these all set up too.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing I find too. If I set them up too much ahead of time, then by the time I go back to them, they're ready to go with commercials again.
There we go. Now this first one after is another one to do with science and the physics of guitars and how they work. So I wanted to keep a little bit of the science going with that.
Nice.
Ah, see, the other ones are loaded properly.
Excellent.
And this one comes from Robert Jackson. 6 ridiculous trends in the guitar industry he's been noticing lately, and from what he says, some of them are really stupid.
Yeah, it happens, man, for sure.
And uh, not to ignore, like, the folk artists out there, because I love folk. And John Mayer Music, he's going to show us a guitar that has a rubber bridge, something that I
Rubber bridge.
I did not know. Like, there were guitars like this.
I've seen plastic bridges, I've seen bone bridges, but a rubber bridge I don't think I've seen.
Yeah, yeah, and the price is not too bad.
Hmm.
And speaking of price, we're not going to ignore the bassists. And this one, I'm curious because you've seen some like bass pedal setups with some of the gigs that you cover, and you know the bassists that you've worked with, and
Hmm.
he's got a budget bass pedal board build. You
Nice.
know, the
How to
pedal
get
board
started? Yeah,
kitchen.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And that one's coming from Tommen's Guitar and Basses.
yeah. And I think that's Guillaume. Yeah.
And another one that I've been anxious to look at for the last couple weeks, Focusrite just came out with their Gen 4 Scarlets, and we recommend Focusrites all the time. And now with the Gen 4, I'm really curious to see what they've improved on, and we're going to compare it against the Mark of the Unicorn M2. So this one comes from the Garage Band Guide, one of the channels we've actually looked at in the past. Great reviews on equipment, so that was my go-to to see what's up with the Gen 4s.
Now, someone was asking about how that even work holding a pitch on a rubber bridge. My thought is it's probably like a really heavy rubber that's more. It would probably feel more like a plastic, like that heavy of a rubber, where it's not like super springy. That would be my guess,
Yeah.
but we're gonna find out.
And then coming from the Focusrite, because the reason why we tend to recommend, they have great mic preamps, but
Hmm.
Colt Capper Capperun, another channel that like we've hit on a couple times. He has awesome hardware reviews, and he claims this is the best mic preamp ever, which
Nice.
is a big claim, and he
It'd
even
be
says it
interesting if it is.
himself. Yeah,
Hmm.
but I definitely wanted to check this out and see what kind of options are going on with that.
Hmm.
And then going to the drummers, a lot of drummers these days are finger drummers more than stick
Nice.
drummers, and Yamaha's come out with a couple of new ones that really look exciting. I mean, I
Very
used to,
interesting button layout.
yeah, that's the thing that caught my attention too, the way that they arrange things looks intuitive.
Hmm. Exactly.
That one comes from Yamaha's global site,
Hmm.
and me, the keyboardist, I mean, I have been looking at this since it came out. It's one of those synth solutions that they throw everything and the kitchen sink into this synth software solution. The nice thing when you get Contact is you get the full blown software, and they've got a keyboard that really complements it, and I really want one.
Yeah, I
If
want one
you
too.
are listening out there, Contact, well, I would love to try it out.
I mean, I'm a bass player, but I want one anyway.
And then continuing with the synths, this was one that I've been trying to get in for one of the nights, just to get some of that retro synth history that like I grew up with, and why I got into synthesizers was some of the things he's going to be showing and how the synth has evolved throughout its history.
Hmm.
And that's
Nice.
Dr. Mix.
Yep. I think we have that one hiding in the stove.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't delete it. I kept that one in the stove, let it
Yep.
cook a little more.
Nice.
And Nectar, I've been swearing by Nectar when it comes to mixing vocals. It's Nectar 3 was such a time saver for me. Still using it, but now I can't wait to see what they've done with Nectar 4. Isotope coming
Hmm.
straight from them. They're going to show us what Nectar 4 is bringing to the table.
Nice. Good, solid all around stuff
Yeah.
for sure.
So our next one is a freshie and a
Hmm.
very cool channel. Like this one is another one that there's, when we go through topics,
Hmm.
when I find these channels where it's like, okay, they talk about this, they talk about that. We've already talked about some of these things.
Mhm.
This is going to be a good long-term resource.
Nice.
Coming from Adam Ivy.
Mhm.
Yeah, Adam Ivy, smart man. And he's
Mhm.
also got, website, adamivy.com. Very smart man.
Mhm.
And again, when you look at the channel, like, yes, we will probably be talking about all this shit eventually.
Exactly. Lots of crossover material. I like it.
Yeah, but
Different perspectives. Yeah.
he fit in perfectly this week because he's going to talk about marketing and, again, plays in with social media etiquette, how you market yourself, and it ties into the branding.
And efficiency. Stop wasting time.
And this was the newest. Like when I was looking for this, a lot of the videos I found were 2-3 years old, still relevant. It's not like much has changed,
Sure.
but he's going at it 2023 style.
Nice. How to market your music 2023. Stop wasting time.
Yeah.
So if you're the type of musician that sits on social media complaining about not being heard while screaming from the rooftops that
music should be about the art and not about the money,
this video probably isn't for you. Newsflash, doing music as your full-time career is very much so about the money, because without money, you don't have a f***ing business. And where do you think the money comes from for independent artists? It comes from getting enough attention, aka a fan base. Crazy concept, I know. This is something the purists hate talking about because apparently, to some people, getting paid for the blood, sweat, and tears you've put into this for years makes you greedy, makes you a soulless capitalist who embodies everything wrong with the music industry. All right, let me calm down a second. Look, I'm here to cut through that played out narrative. I'm here to shake you guys a little bit. I'm here to convince you that you're worth more than you think. And in this video, I'm going to do my best to show you how to make that a reality with strategies that have led some of my most successful students to being able to do music as a full-time career. Now, before I could jump into any of that marketing stuff, we have to establish a starting point, right? We need to be on the same page if any of this coaching is going to be effective in your music career. So there's a few things that we need to agree on. Now, first of all, you need to understand that there's no reality that exists where you just make good music and magically you get swept up into having a successful music career. Say it with me, guys. Good music does not sell itself, never has, never will. Now, for whatever reason, this opinion triggers a lot of people, but my argument is that without people hearing a song to begin with, there's no chance of it gaining popularity without bringing that song to market, aka marketing. You're just holding yourself back if that's what you think. Now, if you agree with that, hit the thumbs up icon to let me know. Now, I want you to write something down if your goal is to eventually sign to a major record label. This could be a year from now, 5 years, it doesn't really matter. And if your goal is to stay independent, I freaking love you, first and foremost. I think this applies to what you're doing as well. I want you to write something down. Record labels sign audiences, not songs. And side note, I'm talking about major record labels. I'm not talking about some random dude named Josh running his indie label out of his one-bedroom apartment in Vermont that claims he was an A&R like 20 years ago. Those dudes are like mosquitoes these days. So I think it's safe to say that I've pissed off a few people so far in the video, and I'm glad you're still here. Anyway, so in the first 2 videos of this training series, I broke down some key elements required to gain momentum as an independent artist, and I also shared with you my push-pull content method that'll not only drive reach and discoverability, it's also going to nurture relationships with your fans. And quite honestly, I guess it's a great place to start with today's training. The way we build an audience or a fan base looks something like this. A stranger bumps into your content, then becomes a follower, from there becomes a fan, and eventually, if we play our cards right, they become what I call family, or some people call it super fans. Now, does that path seem pretty easy? Yeah. The issue is there's too much chaos. Let me explain. Now, we've been talking about this lately, but it seems like everybody and their grandma are musicians these days. And we have Twitter, and we have Instagram, and TikTok, and BeReal, and YouTube, and Snapchat, and I guess Facebook could even be in that conversation. Now, all these people and all these platforms mixed with incredibly small attention spans can make it seem as if our music is but a single leaf amongst the endless foliage of the digital rainforest. This is exactly why we need to stop hyper-focusing on Spotify streams and follower counts and start pouring our focus into connections with people to build a real audience around you as the brand and your music as the product. The vanity metrics are going to throw you into burnout and overwhelm, which is something you might already be experiencing, and that's totally normal. It happens to all of us, but overwhelm comes from knowing how much we need to do without knowing where to start. Now, if you're taking notes, and you should be, make sure to write this down. The solutions are within the systems. The problem is most of us don't have any systems in place. And then we're somehow surprised when we get burnt out. In order to find success in the music industry as an independent artist, you need to put systems in place to give yourself the best possible odds of going full-time for a long time, right? Sticking to a proper diet or sleep schedule is a system. Holding yourself accountable to post consistently on social media requires a system. Starting a song, finishing a song requires some sort of system. It's a process. It's an order of operation. It's also something that most creatives avoid like the plague because it can feel stuffy, which is ironic because those who have the best systems in place are also the ones experiencing the most freedom in life. That's something I think we all aspire to have more of. So what systems do we need in place as an independent artist in order to gain momentum and get to a place where doing music full-time is a real possibility? Well, it boils down to 7 systems. And I know that might seem like a lot, but it's going to totally make sense in a second. Now, the first system is an absolute game changer that unfortunately a lot of us ignore, and that's our health and wellness systems. Don't worry, I'm going to get to the sexy marketing secrets here in a second, but I can't stress enough the importance of our diet, exercise, sleep, and mental health when it comes to pursuing a music career or any entrepreneurial venture for that matter. Getting your health and wellness in order is going to have a ripple effect on every other system that I'm about to go over with you. So let's dive into the meat and potatoes. And if you're not already taking notes, pause the video, go grab something to write with because I'm about to go rapid fire on these. Okay, so the second system you need in place is a creation system. This goes for making music as well as the content you make to build your brand and your fan base. We need to have that technical side in order, like in terms of camera settings and lighting and audio, and we can do that with practice, but ironing out the 4 content buckets, your optimized messaging, and the visuals that you're wanting to create in terms of photos and then video content are all too often an afterthought for musicians. We need to systematize the process of creation just as much as possible without sucking the life out of our own creativity. We need to have fun with this, but keep in mind that those systems keep you accountable and keep you consistent. All right, so the next systems that I want to cover are the visibility systems that we need in order to step in front of traffic that already exists. If you're familiar with my content or any of my programs, then you know I'm always preaching the VCO framework, which is visibility, connections, and offers. But in your visibility system, we need to purely focus on where we want to be discovered. This is where you choose 2 or 3 platforms that you really want to dominate on and study all the features and tools for each platform. Build out your plan of attack in terms of the attention-based visibility content where you cast the broadest net to get new followers. You're attracting people that leads them to the next system. Building an adoring fan base requires a real genuine connection with the audience. And this is why having a nurturing system in place is so important. Strangers turn into followers when you get their attention. But without nurturing that attention, they'll never become a real fan of yours. It's like a relationship with the visibility system, right? Providing you with an opportunity to have a first, second, and third date where you have a fresh outfit on, you're smelling good, you're making sure that your hair is at least brushed a little bit. From there, you bring an audience into the nurturing phase where you're more relatable, you're more available, and you're more willing to open up on a personal level. This is like being 6 months into a relationship and not being afraid to maybe have something in your teeth or worry about throwing on that wrinkled shirt that you just pulled out the hamper. I think this is clean. You know what I'm talking about. The nurturing systems are why major artists and celebrities do radio interviews, they do press junkets, they release behind-the-scenes series for YouTube, and even more epic, their own documentaries. This is in place to strengthen connections with their audience. As independent artists, we need to have these systems in place within our content marketing and bucket systems that I just touched on back in the creation systems. All right, so the next system that we strongly need to consider building out is our automation systems. This is going to save us so much frickin' time with our marketing. Automation systems can involve services such as Later.com, not a sponsor, where you could schedule all your social media posts or your email marketing automations that can get somebody in an email sequence that'll drip content to them for weeks or even months without even thinking about it. Let me know if you want me to talk more about the automation systems in a future video, and I'd be glad to share a bunch of the different tools that we use and my students use. So let me know in the comments below. Got another sparkly one for you. So that's the promotional systems. I mentioned earlier that we need visibility, connections, and offers. So your promotional systems are all about what you have to offer your audience. This could be the system you have in place to build hype around your new single or an upcoming merch drop. Getting attention, nurturing that attention has to lead to some sort of offer if you ever want to go full-time with your music, because the offers are where you finally make money to support yourself. And here's some bonus sauce for you, right? Keep in mind that there's really only 3 types of content that we can create: attraction content, nurturing content, and promotional content. And all 3 fall perfectly into their respective systems here. The problem is that most musicians overload their audience with promotional content over and over again, which turns off that audience and stops them from bringing new people into their content ecosystem. And trust me when I tell you that once the relationship is built with actual fans, there won't be any need to beg for their attention. Also, quick side note, when I'm talking about promotional systems, I'm not talking about paid advertising. Anybody who tells you that you should go out and do paid advertising prior to having all these systems ironed out organically is either clueless, a con artist, or a failed musician posing as some type of TikTok guru. Paid ads are effective once you have the organic systems up and running, but if you're tempted to piss away your money on Facebook ads or promoted TikTok posts without having any way of capturing that traffic, I suggest taking an ice bath, maybe having a loved one slap you in the face to hopefully snap you out of that nonsense. All right, so speaking of traffic, we need to know what that actually looks like and then modify our plan of attack to get as many conversions out of that attention as we can. This is where your tracking systems come into play. I think we'd all agree that a lot of people over the past few years have gone viral, but they've unfortunately fizzled out and weren't able to capture that lightning in a bottle. Instead of being hell-bent on one piece of content maybe going viral, we need to focus on increasing our averages, and we can't do that unless we know our numbers. Off the top of your head, how many accounts have you reached on Instagram in the past 30 days? What does that look like compared to the previous 30 days? How many monthly listeners did you have on Spotify in September compared with this month? What's your average view duration of a video over on YouTube that's doing the best out of your entire channel? These are all basic analytics that we need to have a handle on in order to adjust and optimize. When you reference your numbers quickly, you can reference these things off the top of your head. You have an unfair advantage. Ask any accountant. So before I talk about the 7th and final system, which is definitely one of the most important, I want to acknowledge something, guys. Look, I know that this is a lot. It might feel like you're drinking from a fire hose right now, but this is fundamental, proven frameworks, marketing strategies that you need to have in place if you want to do music as a career, or if you're already doing music full time. These things are going to help you break through that glass ceiling and actually scale your business. Now, if you're still with me at this point in the video, first and foremost, thank you, but I would bet my money that you are more determined than most artists. I think most musicians are seeking out the quick fix, tips and tricks, 5 secret steps, and every other magic pill, get-rich-quick piece of bullshit content they can get their hands on. Those people click this video, and then within 45 seconds, they clicked on something else, but you're not like most people. And that's why I'm so excited to announce that in just a couple days, I'll be opening enrollment into my Sell Music Masterclass 4.0 program, where I'm able to take my time to really help you create all 7 of these systems in detail with the resources to get you up to speed quickly and easily. But that's just scratching the surface. As always, spots are going to be limited, so if you haven't yet, I would highly recommend reserving your seat and joining my early bird waiting list. By being on that early bird list, you're going to receive early access to registration 24 hours before we open the doors to the public. Now, with only 300 total seats available, this is going to be a very limited opportunity, so make sure to click the link in the description box and get your name on that list as soon as you can. Now, the last and final system that we need to make sure that we have in place is any guesses? Your time management system. We all have 24 hours in a day, and it's what we do within those hours that separate the winners and the losers. Having a plan, being scheduled, following through on tasks, and learning how to properly prioritize is key to getting your business off the ground. I absolutely love an organized, color-coded calendar in combination with a productivity planner, but there are a ton of different tools out there that you can use. One thing I encourage you to do is log your day and write down all the pockets of time throughout your day where you're consuming content. Then make a log of all the times that you are in creation mode. Give the world more than you take, and you'll find yourself in a pretty dang good situation. Having a successful music career comes from having dialed in systems, consistency, drive, aggressive patience, talent, and of course a little luck. But keep in mind, it only takes 2,000 engaged fans who are willing to pay you $5 a month to make 120 grand a year, which is more than 80% of Americans. That's with 2,000 people. Now, if you want to be a little bit more cynical or less optimistic, we can cut that in half and you're still making $60,000 a year, which is more than most starting salaries for those who have a 4-year degree. Now, I could throw around numbers, and this is not a financial claim, but the point I'm trying to make here is that it's very possible. You can do this. You just need to have your systems in place. Don't go into this blindly convincing yourself that you'll figure it out. Get help and save yourself a ton of time and headaches. Over the past 10 plus years, I've scaled 2 six-figure businesses, including my own music career, which I did full-time for 8 years, and then went on to scale 2 seven-figure businesses. So I'm pretty confident when I tell you that I know a thing or two about implementing systems and making the most of my time. That's something that I would be honored to help you with in my upcoming Sell Music Masterclass 4.0. But that's not even the most exciting news or the biggest announcement of this video. It's actually my birthday in just a few days, and on April 25th, which is a Tuesday, I want to invite you guys to the party. This year, to celebrate my birthday, we're going to be doing a free live training to help you guys get more fans, get more streams, and make more money with your music. Now, this is something I've never done before. I'll have special guests popping in. I'll be giving away a ton of freaking awesome gifts to those hanging out with me, like gift cards, music gear, books. You got to be there live. And on top of that, I'll be answering all your questions live on the air. Now, we're limited to how many people can join the stream at one time since this is a private party, so make sure to register ASAP over at AdamIvyBirthdayBash.com, and there you'll find the times and all that stuff. That's right, AdamIvyBirthdayBash.com. Guys, let me know in the comments below if you're going to come hang out with me next week for my birthday and which of the 7 systems you're going to focus on first. Again, I'd love for you to come celebrate my birthday with me in a free live training. Just go to the link in the description box below or go to AdamIvyBirthdayBash.com, and I'll see you there.
Yo, happy belated birthday, Adam.
Happy belated birthday.
And that's how you say it like it is. I love his straightforward approach, not afraid to like piss a few people off by telling them how it is. But at the same time, if you felt pissed off by what he was saying, he wasn't pissing on you. He was like saying, these are parts of the industry that you just have to realize how they work.
Yep. He's giving you his perspective. Yeah.
And it's like real world perspective.
I like it.
His classes are likely worthy of, for anybody who's looking to really build a channel and go that level. His point about like 2,000 followers at $5. Yes, you got a better salary than the average bear.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, going from 0 to 2,000 people signing up for $5 a month, that's not a small task. But at the same time, it's a workable framework, understanding the steps that need to be taken and how to get there. It's not undoable. That's his main point, is that it is not that difficult to make that happen.
Yeah. And I actually did take notes. The moment he said, you're going to need to take notes now, I was like, okay, fuck, loaded up the text file, because every part of his system, the way he laid it out and the order that he did and how they relate to each other was spot on. The first one and the last one are life advice, health and time management. We don't have to be talking about music here. Those systems are something you want.
Pop quiz, you were writing things down. What were the 3 types of content that we were creating?
On the creation system?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, I wrote down creation system. As far as the content with musicians,
we were trying to create one stuff that was promotional in content, or nurturing, or a third one. There were 3 of them. I was trying to remember what the third one was. The first
promotional, nurturing, and at the last one should actually be the content. If you're an artist, it should be the actual material.
We'll have to check it out.
Which
that's the kind of thing you got to write down in the notes, though.
The next parts of his system, he went into visibility. That's where you get that content out there and seen. And then from visibility, nurturing, which is the one you hear all the time, like you need to post regularly every day in order to nurture your followers and your fans.
But again, the right kind of content, because if you're posting promotional material every day, that is not nurturing your fan base. That is beating them over the head with the promotional stuff. That's what I was getting at the 3 different types, was that so many people, they feel that engagement thing and they say, oh, I have to engage all the time, and they keep doing the promotional, never just sending the nurturing or the background and stuff or the bonus things. Hey, thanks for being a member for so long. Here's some background stuff, some bloopers, whatever. It can be anything, but they feel, it's extra stuff.
Yeah, he did not ignore that. He
Yeah.
mentioned the
Absolutely.
dangers of over promotion. If all you're doing is promoting and there's never actually any content that really sustains that audience, then yes, you are just a constant commercial.
Right. And that's what you want to avoid. Constant engagement, good, but the right kind of engagement is important.
Yeah. And his automation, he did mention later.com, which I want to check out because,
Mhm.
you know, when it comes to strategic timed posting, once you're really going and you're like, oh, I got to put this out over here, I got to put this out, you could spend all day just promoting across all these platforms
Yeah.
and finding a solution where one button click, set up your posts, and then blast it out where it needs to go, where it fits. Um, Worth checking into that. I might add that as a potential topic for the future.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Oh, there it is. That was that one. The next one is about the music history for the 40,000 years, right?
Yeah, and reason why this one was interesting because I'm constantly wondering, like, where did instruments start? Like, where was the first guitar? Where was the, I guess the woodwinds or the winds and the percussions would have been the first instruments, right?
I mean, percussions for sure. I mean, you can bang on things before you have to actually make anything. You know, you can just smack a rock against something and be, hey, I like the way that sounds. You know, that's the least complicated of things, you know, besides clapping and other kinds of human sounds that you could do like that. But then getting into things like carving, you know, woodwinds when you're getting into the carving stuff, sure.
Oh, that's a good point. Clapping probably was the first drum.
Sure.
It's built in.
Exactly. Don't have to go far.
So this one comes from at Big Think over on YouTube, and this is our kind of channel.
Oh yeah, I like
they,
it.
they got Einstein up there.
Indeed. Smarter, faster.
And they do have a lot of interesting videos about everything, not just music, science. We love it all.
Absolutely.
And for this one, Michael Spitzer is going to talk about the 40,000 years of music that we've evolved through.
And we're going to condense it down into 8 minutes.
Okay. Good timing.
If you were born in Beethoven's time, you'd be lucky if you heard a symphony twice in your lifetime, whereas today it's as accessible as running water. We're drowning in music. We in the West have tended to have a misconception that history of music is a history of works or composers. This tends to reduce music into an object, into an exhibit in an imaginary museum. It also overvalues the role of a composer compared to most people who are innately musical. And I wanted to get away from the usual thing of which composer wrote what piece at what time, to see the bigger picture. We're in a kind of moment of the global, of the universal. And music is absolutely universal. I'm Michael Spitzer. I'm Professor of Music at the University of Liverpool in the United Kingdom. I've written a book called The Musical Human, A History of Life on Earth. It's almost inconceivable to write a prehistory of music because Edison invents the phonograph in 1877, and prior to that we have no record of any sound. In terms of the evolution of instruments, the very oldest instrument we have is a human voice. We also have lithic instruments made of rock, such as stalactites, or the famous rock gongs in Tanzania. But the landmark is a discovery of bone flutes, flutes made out of the bones of vultures, and they're dated about 40,000 years, and they were found in the South German caves. One of the problems with instruments is that the materials biodegrade. So we have to work inferentially by mapping from what we do know. If you're looking at the broad picture of the evolution of sapiens, then the epochs are hunter-gatherer, farming community, and then the founding of cities and city-states. And each of these epochs is associated with mentalities. So hunter-gatherers tended to be nomadic, and if you're essentially journeying through a landscape, what you don't do is carry heavy instruments. Music has to be portable, ideally just a voice, or if not, a very light flute or a small percussive instrument. And if you look at the music that is played by the Cameroon Pygmies, every time they play a piece, it sounds different. It's very much music of the moment. Now, what changes when you invent farming? You settle down, and your whole mindset becomes fixed on the circle of the seasons, the circle of life. And you invent repeatable work, and the structure of the work becomes as cyclical as life itself. You invent the circle in music. You invent musical rituals. And once music migrates from the farm to the town, certain changes happen. Instruments can become heavy because you start to set quite permanent roots into the town. You create heavy instruments like bells and gongs, but also very delicate ones like harps and lutes, which will be damaged over a journey. And music's function now also changes with the growth of social hierarchy. The job of music is to be a handmaiden, to serve the power of the prince or the church. And musicians become professionalized, and their job is to create music to be listened to for people with leisure. And this is the origin of what we call concerts. To have a concert requires leisure, requires money, and oftentimes it's the aristocrats or the upper middle class who had the time to sit back and enjoy music performed for them. For most people over millions of years, that didn't happen.
Away, hold away, hold away together, away.
So the rule is that most music was performed functionally, as we say, whistle as you work.
Away, hold away, hold away, Joe.
Also, it was performed in a participatory way, so there was no distinction between those who create the music and those who listen to it. It was the same people. The idea that we have a composer and we have a listener is a purely modern invention. 1,000 years ago, in 1020, an Italian monk called Guido invents staff notation, and life was never again the same for Western music. Why is that so important? Staff notation was a tool of church control, and through writing chants down, the church could ensure literally that monks singing at the furthest outpost of the empire of Christendom literally sang from the same hymn sheet. And then, once the empire expands beyond the Mediterranean basin, and Cortés invades Mexico in 1519, he takes notation with him. 10 years after Cortés decimates the Indians in 1519, by 1530, we have Aztec musicians singing Spanish polyphony in Mexico Cathedral. So music notation becomes the sharp end of the stick of globalization. Now, there are various consequences to staff notation. Many of them are frankly bad. By pinning notes down to a page, it's almost like capturing a butterfly. You're taking a note away from the voice, you're making it very precise. If you look at the way most people speak or sing, the pitch slides, it fluctuates, it doesn't stay still. Notation freezes a note, it becomes rather cold and mechanical. It also freezes music as an object, which is actually quite counterintuitive. Music isn't an object, it's an activity, it's a thing you do, like dancing or jogging. But once you turn it into an object, you create a division between the composer of the object and those who merely mechanically reproduce it. We're regaining the participatory condition of music, which was the norm thousands of years ago, where we all had an equal stake in creating and enjoying music. Greater integration with technology has served to accelerate a cultural change, and we see that in the extraordinary role of the internet. We can both create music in our homes and share it. The original bone flute was a piece of technology. It serves to extend human capacity. It extends the voice, which extends our imagination. I think it's fair to say that just as what Stockhausen or Beyonce is achieving today would have been completely out of the comprehension of a Mozart or a Beethoven a few centuries ago, we can't even begin to imagine the possibilities awaiting us in the future.
Get smarter, faster with videos from the world's biggest thinkers. To learn even more from the world's biggest thinkers, get Big Think Plus for your business.
Oh yeah, I like that a lot. With
Yeah,
classical music.
that bigthink.com definitely looks like a cool site to go check out.
Yeah. Now with classical music, that was the one thing that when I learned piano as a kid, everything was about learning how to play this piece in this way, and so it was very much the seeing it on the page didn't translate to me in my head. Like I didn't hear what I'm supposed to hear when I'm seeing it on the page. I had to actually plink it out on the piano and then get to where I could actually see what it's supposed to sound like. But some people, they would just be able to look at it on the page, hear what that sounds like, and then be able to reproduce it by ear, essentially, once they've read it that way. I just never got my sight reading to that level when it came to piano, but started learning stuff by ear so quickly that the notation didn't matter as much to me. Like I know how to read sheet music, but I would not be able to just sit down and play at speed, reading something that I'd never played before.
Yeah, I was the same way with the sheet music. Like I could not translate the dots on the staff to sound. You remember Amadeus? There was a
Yep.
scene in there where like he was like seeing the notes and hearing them in his head. I wish that like it had clicked for me like that.
Yeah. And a lot of times with the sight reading, instead of seeing it as you see every dot where it is, every note where it is, it was more of looking at the intervals that are represented and recognizing when you're seeing a major triad, or you're recognizing when you're seeing a major triad with a flat in the middle or whatever. Like you're recognizing the chunks, and it's more again like recognizing words as you learn how to read. For example, like you recognize common words, and once you start to recognize them, then you see them much faster, and you'll be able to say, okay, that's a D major, and then that's this note and this note, and then that's a whatever, and you're able to more quickly go across it like that. Plus, a lot of times they'll have it notated with the chord stamps above anyway. So even if you were playing along on guitar or something, it's F minor and then this and then that. It'll tell you what chords you're doing.
Oh yeah, it really does help seeing those chords on top of it like that.
Absolutely.
Now, did you know that like the staff was invented that long ago?
I didn't know that actually. No.
Yeah, it was. What did he say? 1010,
Yep. 1,000, 1,020, 1,000. Yeah, 1,000 years ago.
Been around for a while,
It's
and
a long time ago.
Can you imagine if they hadn't done that? Like the whole classical era, how would that have played out if they didn't have the staff? Because that was a big part of the early composers.
Sure. And again, that comes down to the composers might have been the only ones who would be able to then perform the piece. If they can't write it down like that, could they still, either perform it or get people to be able to perform it without being able to write it in that way? They might have just come up with a different way of doing it as opposed to the standard staff notation that we use now. But it does seem like a good system.
Yeah, music would not have evolved as fast as it did if the staff hadn't come along. And with the 20th century, like things like the phonograph, these are the kinds of moments in music where all of a sudden everything starts to change and move at light speed.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
And
Well said.
that was an interesting 40,000 years.
Yep, jam-packed. Nice black Stetson. That was good. Good stuff.
So this first one, Elon Osborne, at Elon Osborne on YouTube. And this was a new channel for me.
Yeah, me too.
And the reason why I picked this one, especially to start out, is because it gets us warmed up for like these different roles of music making that we're looking at. And I like that he included orchestrator and conductor, because that's one I kind of wanted to put into the whole of the topics, but it's kind of hard to, cover conductors and orchestrators when you start getting into the other, like songwriting and things like that. Some orchestra musicians, they are one thing and that's it. And his video covers the gamut as far as composing, arranging, orchestrating, and conducting, and what the roles of these different things are.
And some people look at a conductor and they're like, hey, he doesn't even have an instrument. He's not making any noise up there. He's not doing anything. And it's like, well, he's playing the band. I mean, he's the one who like turns up that one a little bit. He's the one who turns that one down a little bit, speeds things up a little, slows things down. Like he's got to be the overall traffic cop, getting the entire piece out in the way that he sees it.
Yeah, the great conductors are the metronome. They are the massagers of this section, that section. They lead that orchestra along, and to the audience,
they want more from over there. More.
Yeah, you see their expression. The audience relates to that conductor.
Exactly. So that was always one of my favorite things to do, is watch the conductor when I'm at an orchestra, and also like look at the individual parts and try to figure out, like, if somebody's soloing, I'm trying to find them in the crowd. Oh, there's the one, their hand's moving a little different than the others.
Yeah, it's the job I always wanted, but it's a lot harder than I thought.
Oh yeah. But what are the differences between composer, arranger, orchestrator, and conductor?
Yeah, let's take a look.
Composer, arranger, orchestrator, conductor. What's the diff? Rinse. Hello, I'm Elon Osborne, and welcome to my YouTube channel where I talk about movies, audio, and music. But more specifically, we'll be talking about a music-related subject that I know so many people have been waiting with bated breath for me to talk about. I mean, look at this Twitter tweet from the Music Goose that reads, at Elon Osborne. Can you please make a video about the difference between a composer, arranger, orchestrator, and conductor? I is honk fused. Thank you, Music Goose, for such a wonderful question that I myself have to go and Google real quick just to make sure I know the difference between the four. And by the way, don't even think about searching for the Music Goose, because you know what happens when you go to Twitter and you type in at music honk honk into the search bar? No results! And you know why? Cause I made it all up. That's right. I spent an extremely long 5 minutes Googling an Adobe Illustrator template for a mock Twitter post, and I couldn't find what I was looking for. So I did it the old-fashioned way, and I created a Twitter post mock-up myself, which I can now use for future videos. You see, I take 30 minutes out of my day to fabricate something that only has 5 seconds of screen time for you. I do it for you, people of YouTube.
But why?
So now that you only wish there was a Twitter handle at music honk honk that actually existed, and that there was an accompanying t-shirt, or maybe, just maybe, the t-shirt does exist? Could a link be in the description below? I don't know. Composer. So you want to be a composer, eh?
No.
Okay then, what is a composer exactly?
I don't know, you tell me.
Think of it this way. A composer starts with a blank canvas. No notes written, no melody, just... From nothing, a composer creates something. Steven Spielberg asked John Williams to compose a score for him. John Williams is sent a rough cut of the film with usually maybe some dialogue and sparse sound effects thrown in maybe. But normally it's just a real rough cut version of the film. From nothing, John Williams writes melodies that will be remembered for generations to come. And speaking of the film industry, sometimes a director will send a rough cut of the movie to the composer, which actually has temp scores in the various cues that they want, just to give the composer an idea of the type of music that he wants in a particular part of the movie, or the genre, or the feel, etc. Now, depending on the project, being a composer means you might just write the melody of the music, and that's it. Or in the case of composers in the days of yore, like Beethoven, Mozart, Wagner, etc., they did everything. They wrote the melodies, they wrote the harmonies, they wrote which instrument in the orchestra would play which part, everything. But that's over.
Nope.
Over.
Uh-uh.
Roger.
Not that either.
But that's overlapping into some of the other jobs that I'll be getting into in this video. So, without further ado, next up is arranger. So a composer makes something from nothing, right?
Right.
Well, an arranger makes something from something that already exists. Take this sheet music one can purchase for AC/DC's You Shook Me All Night Long. Obviously, this piece wasn't originally written for a string quartet. Then why is it available to download for strings? What sorcery is this? Because it has been arranged for a string quartet by Bojana Jovanovic. He took a song that already existed and he rearranged it to be played by 4 stringed instruments. That makes me wonder what it would sound like if you arranged the same song for 4 tubas. Yeah, that sounds about right. Most arrangers know how to read and write music, have a great knowledge of music theory, and are multi-instrumentalists. They also know how to do harmony.
Sure.
They also know how to do harmony, composition, and orchestration. And they usually have their own studio equipped with
a popcorn machine.
And they usually have their own studio equipped with computers, software, plugins, microphones, synthesizers, the works. Another example is your good old band leader from high school or college who wants you to perform a 9 Inch Nails song on the football field with the whole marching band. The sheet music for The Hand That Feeds you can purchase for $70 thanks to Tom Wallace, who arranged it for a marching band. I bet every member of that marching band that year got laid so much.
Yeah, right.
So what are your hobbies? What do you do?
I'm in the marching band.
Ew, gross. Pancakes are so disgusting.
Yeah, well, we're playing 9 Inch Nails this year, so whatevs, no biggie.
Is this starting to make sense now? An arranger might also be asked to speed up or slow down the tempo of a song, strip down and reduce the amount of instruments playing a song, or beef up the performance with even
more beef?
Or beef up the performance with even more instruments playing than the original composition. Speaking of stripping down, Dan Coates is one of Alfred Music's most prolific authors, having taken Broadway tunes, rock songs, film scores, and reduced them down to just being able to play them on the piano at all various skill levels. Think about that for a second. Not only might an arranger strip down to something to be played on piano only, but they also might be asked to write for multiple skill levels from beginning to expert. A song
of Ice and Fire.
And also, remixes fall under the arranger category. Arranging can not only mean speeding up or slowing down a song, beefing up or stripping down, but it can also mean reimagining a song altogether. So, you know, like DJs. Wow, I love your remix of the Neverending Story theme. You're my favorite DJ. I prefer the term electronic arranger. Making or reinventing something from something that already exists. Moving on, orchestrator. In this category, we're dealing with 2 camps. Orchestrator for concert and stage, and orchestrator for TV and film. Let's start with orchestrator for concert and stage. Mainly performances that are live, done by real people with real instruments. Similar to an arranger, an orchestrator does
calisthenics.
Similar to an arranger, the orchestrator makes something from something that already exists. But the key difference is, while the arranger reimagines something. Hey, Klaus Doldinger, composer of the music for the Neverending Story. Yeah? You dig my remix of your sick theme? 9. The orchestrator develops, enhances, or completes a piece of music, sticking very closely to the original composer's intention. And specifically talking about concert and stage, the orchestrator is very familiar with how an orchestra works, taking the composer's melody or watered down score and expanding it to a full orchestral score, determining the number of musicians in each section, strings, woodwinds, brass, percussion, the registers in which each instrument plays, and balances the dynamics of the orchestra to achieve the desired effect of the composer. Speaking of dynamics, this might happen between a composer and an orchestrator. This part is supposed to be loud, so that's when like everybody in the whole orchestra plays at the same time, right? No, that's not how an orchestra works. Or this scenario might come up concerning the manner in which the performers are playing their instruments. Yeah, I was thinking the woodwinds would do this like 16th note staccato riff for like 16 bars, while the French horns and trombones would just hold out their notes for those same 16 bars? Oh, so you want the woodwinds and brass to pass out, is that it? Wait, what? So what about TV and film orchestrators? You can't talk about the modern day orchestrator without talking about MIDI, Musical Instrument Digital Interface. With the ease of using musical software these days, composers will write a score using orchestral sample libraries and the use of MIDI notation. Orchestral sample library? Yeah, dude!
Language, geez.
Sample libraries are usually hundreds of gigabytes worth of actual samples of recorded instruments being played, then loaded into software patches, which can then be played by a MIDI keyboard. I personally use East West's Hollywood Orchestra sample library. They are not a sponsor. I bought this with my own money many years ago. So there.
Fine.
So these days, TV and film orchestrators receive a MIDI score from a composer, complete with assigned instruments and when and where they will be playing, as well as an MP3 or WAV file, so the orchestrator knows how it should sound when it's complete. The orchestrator then takes these two sources and works it out into a full-fledged working score that can be played by actual musicians on stage. But only if the project has a big enough budget to allow live recordings of that score to be played by real musicians. But what if they don't have the budget? Well, here's a little subcategory of TV and film orchestrators. MIDI orchestrator. Since sample libraries sound eerily close to the real thing nowadays, projects that don't have the budget, like many TV shows, will have the score be only synthesized. In this case, the MIDI orchestrator still receives a MIDI score and an MP3 from the composer, but then using their knowledge of how an orchestra actually works, they then retool the MIDI score using their own sample library to make it sound like an actual orchestra is playing the correct parts at the correct time, and then that final synthesized recording is then used in the TV episode or whatever. So the MIDI orchestrator tends to just stay in the digital realm.
Using computers and stuff, and their own sample libraries, staying in their deep, dark caves, never to be seen again.
Last but not least, conductor, aka maestro. Yeah, they just stand behind the podium and wave their baton. No biggie. The end. Incorrect! They're basically the equivalent of a director of a film, overseeing the performance aspects of a piece of music like dynamics, phrasing, timing, etc. And also, like a film director needing to get the best performance out of an actor, a conductor must be extremely charismatic and inspire the musicians to work as a cohesive unit and become unified in song. So no wonder you get some pretty flamboyant conductors out there like Gustavo Dudamel of the LA Philharmonic Orchestra. Say what you want though, he knows how to get incredible performances out of the musicians he works with. I mean, look at it. Wouldn't you be pumped if your conductor was this pumped? Hype! Let us review. Composer. This blank page mocks me. The vastness of this empty void causes such turmoil within. Oh, hey, look, I wrote some music. Something from nothing. Arranger. You know what's better than Smells Like Teen Spirit? A marching band playing Smells Like Teen Spirit. Something and or a reimagining of something that already exists, which can mean both working with the composer or doing it unbeknownst to the composer. Dig my remix? 9. Orchestrator. Hey, I wrote this cool melody. What would it sound like if it was played by a whole orchestra on a stage? Leave it to me, good sir. MIDI orchestrator. Hey, did you get that MIDI score file? Did you like that flute part? That's not how flutes work, bruh. Let me fix everything you've done with my computer in solitude. In darkness. Conductor, follow my lead, follow my tempo. Aren't you pumped to play since I'm pumped to? So there you have it, folks. I hope you learned something today. And if you didn't, I don't care. Don't forget to join my Patreon page where I go over some exclusive content for your eyes only if you give me a little bit of money or whatever. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And don't forget, always be listening.
I got merch. Link in description. I got Bandcamp. Link in description. I got a Patreon. Link in description. I got Etsy. Link in description. I got a kids book. Link in description. And don't forget, always be listening.
Oh, he even got his own little hip hop theme.
Yeah. He's got all the bases covered. It sounds like he's doing it all right.
Yeah, at Elon Osborne on YouTube. Tell me he didn't remind you a little of Stevie T. He's got that same kind of energy and
Kind of. Yep.
crazy humor.
Yep. Can be, some people find it a little distracting, but I like it. I thought it was well done.
No, it's more lighthearted.
Yeah, exactly.
And man,
Now-
he cleared up the differences between those four different roles.
Oh, absolutely. And you do find that, at this point, you're some people, they go through all those as stages instead of being, separate jobs or whatever. It's like, hey, I have nothing. So, okay, I'm going to songwrite. Now I have something, and now I can be the arranger and figure out how to make that sound better. A lot of it also, we talked about any song that's going to be a good, memorable song should be able to be reduced down to just being played on an acoustic guitar and a singer, or a piano and a singer, or whatever. You should be able to boil it down to something that's, memorable enough. It shouldn't need 17, guitar parts and 15 whatever keyboard parts. You should be able to, get it down to the essence and have that essence be memorable. And then, then you got yourself a good song on your hands.
Yeah, and a lot of these roles, especially with the arranger and the orchestrator, they're more about like extending that simple melody into multi-part sounds and focusing on different instruments where orchestras would come in and actually fill out those parts.
Yep. Got to figure out where the bagpipes go in the song.
Yeah, I like how when he was talking about composers, like there is a difference between the classical composers that we're used to from music theory class to composers. They focus more on mood and themes more so than trying to be the Beethoven where you're scoring everything, and they were really writing the complete story in the old days, where today's modern composers are looking for moods to go with the scoring that they're doing to the film or TV.
Yeah, and that's what I like about when they're talking about somebody getting a rough draft of a movie, for example. I mean, that would be so exciting. Like, be able to get that, and you're watching the scenes, and what emotion does that bring out of you? And you're trying to get that emotion into the music that you're creating. That sounds like it would be just a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, the modern composer is definitely more in about emotion of the moment.
Might be a fun experiment some night. Like, take a classic movie that really well, and just mute it. And just put it on in the background. And then what if I were writing the music to this? And then whether you're remembering what that part sounded like, or whether you're just putting in your own thoughts about how the emotion should go in this particular scene. It'd be a fun little experiment to try sometime.
Yeah, and I also found it interesting with the orchestrator, how he mentioned the difference between sometimes their job is to prepare it for an orchestra, and in other cases, the MIDI orchestrator, which I can relate to. Like that's
I saw that when I was like,
and the sample pack he mentioned, the Hollywood orchestra samples, is an awesome pack. If you can get your hands on it, it sounds gorgeous.
Nice, good stuff.
Yeah.
This is one of those times. Unmute the Tony.
La da 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 da
Da-da-da.
da.
Yes, indeed. This is one of those times on a Thursday.
And I'm practicing my Italian a little bit to get
Nice.
ready for tonight.
It's Italiano.
We're definitely going to be talking a little Italian with some of the things we're going to be going over. Musical terms, what some of these terms mean, and a little bit of music theory, but not from the technical side, more so as the terminology side. So for those that are a little fearful of music theory or just don't want to get too deep into it, tonight's more of what terms mean kind of thing, which you should recognize that even if you don't want to learn the circle of fifths and everything else, you should still know like what a sonata is.
Tonight's more of a snorkeling expedition than a deep dive.
Yeah.
Just kind of cruising along the top, taking a look at different things.
Yeah, and we do have a little bit of gear stuff as well, just because you can't resist some of this new stuff that's coming out. And this one I actually stumbled on early this morning, just came out yesterday, and Google's jumping big into the AI game with this Gemini engine. This one's a game changer. It seems like every day we're seeing like AI game changing, but this one's for real. And
and the game does change that rapidly.
Yeah, it's going to show the Google Gemini engine, which might be the Chat GPT 4 killer, comes from AI Mastery. And this is the gear that I've been most excited at looking at the last couple of weeks. The Shure SM57 is one of the most popular, if not the most popular mic out there for podcasters, singers.
In this case,
all
they changed it. They changed it from the 7B to the 7DB for this one. So they added a little switch on the back that has the the secret sauce built in now, which is awesome.
And dB decibels. They gave it some decibels, and this one comes straight from Sweetwater. That's the premier source go-to for equipment information.
Exactly. That's where I was looking at it for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's where I would get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Then we're going to get into some of the theory, and like I said, we're going to stick to more basic theory, just identifying, elements of what theory really is and what music is broken down into. So a beginner's guide to music theory with Inspirasper.
Nice.
Need Ange for these names.
Inspirasper.
And like I said, a little bit of Italian's going to have to be learned tonight because a big chunk of our musical terms and theory comes from the standards that they set. And they kind of set these words. So not only are we going to learn what they mean, we're going to learn how to say them.
Nice. Little pronunciation guide.
Yeah. And that's from my Italian circle. That's like Italian's her specialty. Wait till you hear her accent. It's so sexy. And elements of music, again, what makes music theory, and start to get into form and some of the things that we actually talked about last week with arranging and composition and things like that. And another one that I've been interested to see, BandLab is now gearing up to kind of break Cakewalk apart, and there's going to be a Cakewalk Pro and this one, which I've been wondering what it's going to be. And Zane got his hands on an early beta of Cakewalk Next, so he's going to let us know what he found.
Nice.
Over at Audio Tech TV. And then back to some music theory with the different kinds of musical forms, at least the ones, for us coming from a classical background that we're familiar with, symphonies, sonatas, quartets, etc. This is where a lot of those Italian words came from.
Sure. And you see it all over the sheet music for sure.
Yeah,
Fortissimo, pianissimo, all that good stuff.
And another freshie inside the score, channel devoted to scoring. Another thing that I'd like to look at one night more.
Yeah, for sure.
And piano lessons on the web. Can't resist any channel that has piano in it.
That's right.
And he's gonna show us some resources on where you can get a nice list of all the musical symbols and terms that you might see in sheet music. Again, you don't have to memorize this stuff, but it doesn't hurt to recognize some of these symbols and how they teach the person the dynamics. It's not just the dots that are telling you what to do. Those symbols really help to recognize when something gets louder or faster or ups the tempo.
And again, it's not about a quiz being at the end, but it's more about exposure to the, to the expressions, to the, what you'll see in the sheet music, so that when you're looking through sheet music, you can go, oh wait, I recognize that one and that one, but what's this one? You'll start to narrow that group that you don't understand, and then all of a sudden you understand them all.
Yeah, and just getting familiar with them. I mean, this stuff is not going to like turn you instantly into a great musician, but it will help you to understand some of the things when other musicians are speaking to you about them.
And that's the key, is that speaking to it, it's about music communication through the paper, through what you're writing down, like being able to communicate how to, you slow down ever so slightly, retardando, you tell somebody how to do the different things using these expressions and using these phrases.
The retardando.
I looked ahead, I cheated.
Yeah. And I couldn't resist, if we're talking about theory and things like that, especially Rick Beato, his older videos, he really put a lot of great stuff out there. That's why I've been following him for so long. And
yeah, for sure.
He's going to get more into the complex musical terms, some of the ones that go beyond what we're going to be starting out with. And if we got some time towards the end, we're going to look more at the song structure and modern popular types of song structure. So, after looking at the classical ones, we're going to look at what the modern song structures are using.
In terms of like verse, chorus, and, all that kind of good stuff.
Exactly. And, he does give some great examples, real world examples. Music by Maddie.
Nice.
And this one I hope we can get to. I've been wanting to get it in there. How to modulate to any key. He does an awesome job of showing different ways that you can shift what key you're in and make it sound clean, because it's challenging sometimes. You want your music to go somewheres or to change in mood, and being able to modulate to any key is key to accomplishing that.
And you can do it suddenly, but you don't want it to sound abrupt or jarring, it's unless that's what you're going for. Like, there could be a time where you have something, you're going from very peaceful, whatever, and you're going to jump into something that's super, edgy and sounds weird or whatever. Like, you can do that kind of thing. But for the most part, you want your transitions to sound smooth or deliberate at the very least.
Yeah. And that's going to be coming from Zach Hyde, and he really makes it look easy. That's what I liked about this one.
Nice.
And to finish off, we've got prepared dissonance, which is another thing that like I've been trying to understand more. Dissonance in music is so important. It's like just like you want to be melodic. Dissonance is something that can be very useful in your music writing, but you got to know where to use it, how to use it. And in this case, Anne Catherine Dern, she's going to show you how to prepare to use it in your songwriting.
Nice. Because that is very key. I mean, just like tension and release, there's a lot of that in there as well. But when it comes to dissonance, like two of the ones that you would hear about most commonly probably are the ones where you just have a chromatic tone, where it's just two notes next to each other, played together. And the other would be a tritone, where you're dealing with a flat 5 or a sharp 4.
Yeah, throwing that one note in to just scare you,
Mm-hmm.
startle you.
And there's places to use that. And same thing with the full diminished chord. You know, like we've talked about that previously as well, where, you know, getting a whole diminished chord in there and getting that sound, like you recognize it from movies. There's certain chords that you'll recognize from like a, you know, a detective movie. You get that the end of a thing where all of a sudden they reveal something like, you know, or something scary where it jumps out. You know, they have that one, you know, chord that jumps out at you, and it's not one that you would normally hear because it's not a normal major chord or a normal minor chord. They do something different, and this will probably get into some of that.
And it really does work very effectively when it comes to movie scores and, you know, television, where like that kind of dynamics adds to the scene.
Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, it's chock full of theory. Talking shit with Glenn and Tony.
Once again on a Thursday, just like that. Got to do it.
Oh, and tonight we're going to be talking a lot of shit about something that's right in your ball court.
That's right. That's right. Something that looks something like this. Bass.
Yes, it's bass night.
Mm-hmm.
Part 2.
That's right. We've got a few. I mean, there were so many good ones that we had to, you know, pick and choose, but we got a bunch of them that I think will cover the subject quite well.
Well, and we're doing things a little different than normal. Tonight is pretty much going to be a spotlight on what I have to say is the best bass resource out there.
Oh yeah.
For anybody who's serious about like learning bass and want to take it to the next level, this is the theme of tonight's website and channel, and what we're going to be looking at. It's all about upping your bass game, taking it to the next level.
Indeed. And Scott's is the place.
Divine.
Scott's Bass Lessons SBL Academy.
Yeah, and we actually came up with doing this because he just finished another big contest, and he's still got a couple of contests going. The awesome thing with Scott is he's kind of a bass philanthropist. He gives back a lot to his students and to his followers, and
absolutely,
he's constantly giving equipment away. For any of you bassists out there, you really want to keep up and follow him. You'll have opportunities to possibly win some great equipment.
Absolutely, and you learn something while you're there as well.
Yeah, in fact, when you go to his YouTube channel, which is at Divine Bass, if you check here in the community section, this is where he lets people know like the different giveaways he's doing. And look at this banana bass, man.
Banana bass. Yep, that's part of a contest that's, I believe, going on right now, and I think he's going to be drawing the winners on the 23rd. 21st, 23rd. We'll have to double check.
Oh, he's got different shots of it too.
Oh yeah. It's a 5-string. It's a beauty. I've seen him play it in several of his videos. These are usually like his personal bass that he's putting into these contests, like basses that he has used that either have been sent to him by the manufacturer or ones that he's picked up over the years. Just amazing stuff. I mean, he also has one of his videos is like 45 minutes long, and it was, my bass collection. And I was like, wait, I mean, I have a bass, so it's like, ta-da, there's my bass collection. But with him, it's like a 45-minute video to go through all the basses.
I know. I wanted to add that one, but it's long.
Yeah, exactly. But so many beautiful ones, like you're looking at right here. I mean, right there, that's, we were talking about the pickups before, and the two that are little, those two chunks side by side, that's like the P bass style. And the one bar, that's like the J bass style.
So that's the PJ.
So that looks like a PJ to me. The one I have, if you were to look at this screen, like you see that it's just the two long bars.
Yeah.
So that's the J bass style. And this is a passive J bass, so there's no 9-volt battery or active electronics or anything like that.
Oh, and
And
I'd love
that
to
one looks
win
amazing.
this
Yeah,
one. Yeah, this is from
that's a
5
sick
days ago, so I think you might still have a chance for this one.
I think literally all of them are part of the same contest, and he's just showing off a different one each day or so. But the winners for all of them should be the ones that are getting announced on the 23rd.
6-string.
Yes. Which, if you can play a 5-string, a 6-string is no more complicated than the 6. But you can see them all in that shot right there, like he's all sitting around him. Like, which one should I play today? my only concern about having that many basses would be like, okay, how about keeping the strings fresh on all of them? Not that I change bass strings very often, but like when it comes to guitars, somebody who's got 20 guitars around the house, it's like, how often are you going to be changing those strings? Because if they sit, they're going to start oxidizing, and then they're not going to feel right when you go to play them. So keep the collection tight as far as what you're playing on a daily basis.
That is a tight collection.
Oh yeah, and all within arm's reach, and that's Scott, and he does some great stuff over there. I mean, again, I want to say that I've been a member of Scott's for probably 3 years now, 3 or 4 years. But just even finding some of the videos for free on the internet, if you're looking for bass stuff, you're going to come across Scott's videos for sure. But coming across them earlier rather than later is good, because then you can jump right in. He's got a lot of free resources. He's got a free crash course. I think we're going to actually look at part of that as part of what we're looking at here. We're going to be highlighting a few different parts of his website, some of the different playlists that he has going on there, because there's just so many different types of resources that he has available there, that they're all kind of broken down into different sections for you.
Yeah, that's why we decided to really there's so much that it's worthy of a full blown spotlight. The whole show is just going to be about all these awesome videos that he has broken up into awesome playlists, depending on what you're looking to learn. And these are the free videos that he puts out there.
Yep.
But it is worth going and checking, scottsbasslesson.com and see what he offers for those who are serious students. There's just so much resource. I think what impresses me the most about him, he understands how online teaching really works. We're going to look at his promo video in a moment, and he talks about like how teaching online these days, this is something he's really trying to improve on and utilize this vast resource of the internet. He's got a team of talent behind him that focuses on all sorts of different bass styles. And there's the video we're going to watch.
Yep. And to me, that's one of the important things, having the team, as far as different people connect with a different teacher. Like you'll see one teacher and you'll be like, whatever. You'll see another teacher and be like, oh yeah, that's the guy that I want to watch. And then you'll show him to your buddy and he'll be the opposite way, where the guy that you were really connected with, that he's like, that guy's a jerk or whatever. And then the other guy that you didn't care for is the guy that he connects with. So everyone's going to have a different perspective on that and who they connect with. And that's where having a whole team of different people and different styles of bass players on there that are all just amazing bass players and just experts in their field, be able to watch them give you these lessons one-on-one and see which one you connect with, or you connect with all of them, and you can pull nuggets from any of them for sure.
And look at, the different tutors and courses that you've got here, whether you're doing blues, how to get hired, industry advice. That's something that goes beyond your typical simple lessons.
That's like, okay, now I know how to play bass. Now what? How to get hired?
Songwriting and composition. This is like the full gamut.
Yep. Lots of great stuff.
And jazz gotta be
it's in there somewhere. Yep.
And again, look at the different skills that they go into. Yeah, and they've got the step-by-step videos and tutorials. But what I thought was really cool is this live weekly learning, and you get into some one-on-one this is where you really feel like you're with an instructor.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely checked out several of those. Some good stuff there.
Yeah, it's very concise. I mean, this goes above and beyond what you'll typically see for instructor-based websites.
Mm-hmm. And again, many different perspectives because you're getting from all these different instructors that are on there, all kind of under one roof, which is great. A lot of them he co-hosts, like it'll be Scott and somebody else, like Scott and Ian will both do a video together, or one of the other hosts, like they'll get together, or it'll be something where it's just completely hosted by another one because there's a specific, somebody is a metal bass player, so it'll be a specific video on that, or somebody else is all about the blues, like you said, and it'll be all about that. Very tailored and very focused towards very specific things. Lots of great reviews.
Everybody who tries it loves it, and he does give a 14-day free trial and a 30-day guarantee.
Yep.
And again, he gives back to his students and the opportunity to win equipment, get credit towards additional courses.
Yep. Part of the contest that's going on right now, where he's giving away that banana bass, is if you get the free subscription right there, or the free 14-day trial, that gives you extra entries into the contest, for example. So we'll look at that a little bit later. But the contest overall had, I want to say it was something like $50,000 worth of giveaways. It was a bunch of really nice basses, as well as 15 lifetime memberships for Scott's website.
And wasn't that the second one this year? Because he had one back in like January, right?
There've been a few,
of the year. Yeah.
I lose track of them. There's so many.
Yeah.
And also when he does some of those, it's also usually linked with a charity. I want to say one was about building schools in under-resourced countries as well, where with some of the stuff that's going in, whether it was for the contest or whether it was something related, he's working with charities as well. So it's not just all about bass; it's also about community. It's also about helping out, which I really like. Just very good philosophy overall.
Fostering creativity in kids, huge.
Yes.
And when I looked at it and I looked at the breakdown on the cost, when you think about it, 90 cents a day, I'd rather get half a cup of coffee in bass lessons than a half a cup of coffee.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a small cup of coffee too.
Yeah. McDonald's coffee.
But again, very good stuff.
Yeah, that's at scottsbasslessons.com. You can get all the information on this. He's also got two other links that are still about the courses and a little more focused on crash courses. That's at courses.scottsbasslessons.com. And he's got a free resource here where this is a free bass toolkit. It's a good way to get started, see what is offered in the bigger website, and this is a nice introductory into this. And look, he covers a lot there for a free bass toolkit.
Yep, he's definitely not shy about giving stuff away, for sure. There's so much material that he has that's there's some that's the premier material, but there's also so much of the material that's available just on YouTube and just for free on his resources here as well.
And accessible on all platforms, phone, tablets, and computers.
Yep, all around. Can't say enough good things about the resources at Scott's, for sure.
Yeah.
And then Nare Soul.
Yes, if we're going to be looking for musical advice, she's always going to be part of it.
Oh yeah.
And this
Lots of good stuff on her channel, for sure.
Yeah, this one comes from one of her other channels that she's involved with, because she does a lot of musical work with PBS. They couldn't ask for a better resource. This one comes from at Soundfield PBS on YouTube, and
very cool.
They're lucky enough to have her and other musical talents to cover this topic.
We're going to look at how they can make music sound scary.
Well, how composers make music
Yes.
sound scary.
That's the question.
Which is a little different than, you know, making your instrument sound scary. As a composer, you've got to pick the right instruments.
Absolutely. And let's see which ones are the right ones.
Horror films don't get much respect, but while horror has often been dismissed as lowbrow, its music has been anything but.
Listen to the score from the 2018 horror thriller Bird Box. Now check this out. Hear the similarities? This experimental composition was a key part of The Exorcist, a film that changed horror music forever. But what is that sound, and how did it come to influence the horror films of today?
Nare and I are going to compose a score for an original scary short. But first, let's take a look back at how scary music has evolved from the silent era to The Exorcist to today.
Since there's been film, there's been horror. In the silent era, most films would either have no music, or they would be accompanied by live musicians who would play popular or classical tunes. Only a handful of silent horror films were accompanied by original scores. The music written for the 1920 release of The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari was described by one theater runner as eligible for citizenship in a nightmare country. The first time a thematic musical score was written for a feature-length American talkie was for the 1933 monster movie King Kong. Written by composer Max Steiner, this score utilized techniques that would go on to be used in horror films for decades, such as Mickey Mousing, in which music matches a character's action, and leitmotifs, which are short, recurring musical ideas that typically signify the presence of a monster or a villain. It's a technique John Williams would later use in what's likely one of the most memorable film scores of all time. This two-note leitmotif is perfect not only for its menacing simplicity, but also for its functionality. The quicker it gets, the closer we know the shark is.
During Hollywood's golden age, horror films and the scores written for them often lacked subtlety. The music usually told the audience what to fear.
50s was so big, giant ants and these aliens from outer space, where 60s, Psycho kicked it off. It was personal. It's a lot of interpersonal drama. Bernard Herrmann's score in that is iconic.
Psycho's shower scene is one of the earliest examples of a jump scare, and is one of the most famous examples of a stinger chord, a common horror music technique where musicians sharply attack a chord to reinforce the moment of surprise. Hitchcock originally wanted the shower scene to be silent, but composer Bernard Herrmann decided to write a piece featuring violins playing a shrieking upward glissando, which is produced when a violinist glides their fingers up or down the strings as they play. Hitchcock later said that 33% of the effect of Psycho was due to the music.
I watch a lot of superhero movies. Sure, the Avengers score is cool, but I'm not going to think of the Avengers score when I'm like kicking butt. But when I'm scared alone at night, I think of that horror movie score.
One reason stinger chords so effectively heighten terror in horror films is that they manipulate the deep-rooted fear centers in our brains.
What makes something scary? Experimental work has shown is that screams that are fear-based screams, they're known to have a very particular kind of acoustic signature. It's called roughness, and that gives it the kind of scraggly, fluttery vibe. Whether they're vocalized sounds or alarm sounds or other sounds, it's the ones that have increased roughness feature. And that's what you interpret as a listener as fearful. It could be a guitar string, it could be a piano sound, it could be anything.
Now let's fast forward to the film that changed horror music forever, The Exorcist. William Friedkin's 1973 classic was so terrifying that it caused audience members to faint, vomit, and protest its release. Some people even thought the film itself was possessed. That's partly because of its unforgettable soundtrack, which included disturbing experimental compositions that went on to shape the way horror scores and soundtracks sound, even to this day. That's the sound of Krzysztof Penderecki, the leader of the Polish school of avant-garde composers in the 1950s and 60s. To get this haunting sound, Penderecki used tools like sound masses and tone clusters.
Penderecki's score, I don't know, it sounds classic. I love a song that I don't know when it was composed. I didn't know if Penderecki was from the 1700s or now, and I love that it has this timeless sound to it. It's timelessly scary as well.
So to create a tone cluster, you can basically take a number of pitches that are a semitone apart, for example, F sharp, G, G sharp. These are all tone clusters. With sound mass, the focus is more on the effect as a whole, where we have a clump of pitches where the specificity of each note and rhythm matters less than the texture as a whole. His use of these compositional tools defied the classical form and helped take The Exorcist to a demonic dimension.
Although Penderecki's music feels like a horror film, he didn't write it for the screen. Much of his experimental work was inspired by the real-life terrors of World War II. As a boy in Poland, Penderecki witnessed the violence of Nazis in his hometown of Debica. Penderecki's music was also used in another landmark horror film, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Horror music, horror film
I've never seen a real horror film from start to finish, ever.
Is it just not your cup of tea?
When I was little, I used to get scared watching documentaries about, you know, those documentaries that talk about haunted houses or whatever.
Yeah, that stuff be real though.
Do you think that there's a stereotypical horror film sound?
I think the shrieking violins.
Stuff in the higher register, like...
Ah! Yeah.
Or even any dissonant interval. Dissonance is a common aspect of horror film music. One of the most effective ways to utilize it is through the tritone, a musical interval composed of 3 adjacent whole tones. A major third, or a perfect fifth. These are all consonant intervals where they sit quite comfortably in the ear. Let's compare that to a tritone. There's more tension there. It's a clashing dissonant sound that has helped it earn the name the Devil's Interval in music, and you can hear it in many horror films, like during the canoe scene in Friday the 13th, where composer Harry Manfredini repeats 2 tritones a half step apart.
Another common technique is to put familiar or non-threatening music into a creepy context. Often it's little kids singing children's songs. Also, quoting religious music can help set the stage for films that traffic in the demonic. Wendy Carlos and Rachel Elkind used this technique in the opening of The Shining with their recomposition of Dies Irae, a 13th century Gregorian chant.
Playing instruments in specific or extreme ways is another powerful tool in horror film music. You'll often hear violins play sol ponticello, which means close to the bridge, combined with tremolo to produce eerily shrill sounds. Sometimes simple techniques can be just as effective at heightening dread in horror films, such as using a bass line to mimic the sound of a heartbeat, as John Carpenter did in The Thing. The steady heartbeat gives us a clue that something menacing is constantly lurking nearby, and it's coming for the characters. Say that if, just with strings, there's something about sustaining a high note, like, can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
That just builds tension the more you do it.
True.
Also really low things like...
Yeah.
And then you put a cluster.
Do you want to approach me riding the bike in the hallway and confronting the twins? I'll approach the door.
Okay, now here's the score that we made for our horror film starring Toussaint Morrison from our fellow PBS series America from Scratch.
Little pigs, let me come in. Not by the hair on my chinny chin chin, but I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in.
Come and play with us. Come and play with us, Lily.
Monstrum is a new show from PBS Digital Studios about monsters, myth, and lore. The show is written and hosted by Dr. Emily Zarka, who has a PhD in literature with a focus on monsters. Basically, she's a doctor of monsters. Head to the link in the description to check out the show and find out the origins of iconic monsters.
Oh, I'm checking out that show.
Absolutely. And a good, like you said, good resource for PBS there for Nare Soul. Very good.
Yeah, and she actually like just nudged me towards a couple of composers that I wasn't familiar with the names of the composers responsible for these movies. I mean, I
Right.
know who Wendy Carlos was, but I didn't know that she actually was part of that introduction in The Shining. That's really awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. And a Gregorian chant repurposed.
And you know, you got to give Jaws the credit. It has actually come up on almost every video as a reference.
EF. So easy.
Well, and yeah, like they
But
say, it's in its
so does me.
simplicity, it managed to scare the shit out of you.
Exactly. That's what we like about it. Very cool. And that was the Soundfield. I didn't know that was a channel that Nari was associated with. Very
Oh
cool.
yeah, we found like 4 so far. She's all over YouTube.
Very cool.
Yeah, love her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we love you whole lots.
Oh yeah. Every week more and more.
And I do have thoughts.
Indeed.
And
Now,
we are going to share them with you.
Yep. And spooky season came in, and as quickly as it got here, it's gone again. So, there is that. Unfortunately,
Well,
everybody loves spooky season.
Now it's like the flu and cold season.
Yeah, I can hear it. I hear it there, just a little.
I'm at the end of it. Decongested.
Yeah. Well, it's all right. We'll get you through a little chicken soup. Chicken soup would be good. That's what I would recommend. Matter of fact, I had
Well,
some
I
the
got
other
the
day. You can
chicken.
see it. No sniffle.
I had
no
chicken
sniffle.
tonight.
Well, that should help. Welcome to everybody. We see Crypt, we see Rodrigo, we see a bunch of people all showing up. Muse, how's everybody doing? Walk. Everybody coming in to talk some shh IT with us. Today we're talking songwriting, all kinds of things.
Well, it's actually like about the workflow. This is one I think we're going to do a couple of different nights on a couple of different workflows. Each step in making a song has different workflows. The recording workflow, that'll be one for the future. But for tonight, we're kind of keeping it simple, going from conceptualization of a song, taking an idea, turning it into a song, and then going into the recording process, and then mixing, mastering, getting ready for release.
Yep. The whole shebang.
And we got some freshies tonight, and we got some that we're bringing back, because when I decided to go with this one, there were certain channels that like I knew I was going to find what I was looking for, like in the mix. We're going to be talking mixing. That's a channel that I like to go back to. And a few of the other ones, there's a couple of nice surprises in here. Holistic songwriting. We're going to start with them. And I like this channel because it takes more of a natural approach to songwriting. And this one kind of just goes into like how to start a song, just different ways, whether it's from an idea, a song title, he's going to get into some interesting suggestions, and including 2 crazy ones, which are kind of cool ideas. And he gets into the like dice rolling, idea and things like that.
Very cool.
C3,
Dice rolling is a good one.
New channel, and he's gonna kind of cover how to record a song on a computer. That's the beginning of going from idea to laying it down, getting it into something that you can record.
Right. Something to work with. Yeah.
Yep. And like this channel, Help Me Devin, very useful channel, and he lives up to his name. He's going to go into 4 easy steps for recording the best vocals, because part of when you're doing your recordings, the instruments are a challenge, but the vocals are a whole unique challenge in themselves. And you'll see throughout this process, we'll have a couple of different vocal centric videos to deal with the difference of capturing the instrument versus capturing the voice.
Yeah. And for me, I'm going to have that extra challenge all the time, because with my voice being in a different register than most people's, it's one thing that we have to give that extra, most people would say, oh, male voice. Okay, here, boom, preset 1. And it's like, well, I'm not really preset 1. It's like I'm preset 1 down an octave or whatever. It's like you got to adjust things a little bit.
Male voice with some boom.
Yep. And not too much boom though, because that's the other problem is if I end up going through the crossover and the subwoofer and end up really rattling the whole place, I just do a low hum and make the entire stage vibrate.
Hey, some people like that.
Yeah, but the sound guy looks over like, what's going on? And it's just me standing in a microphone. It's like, how is that even possible?
So he's going to show us 4 easy steps for recording the best vocals and kind of give you a recording template, which is a good thing to do once you've got a good setup. Once you've calibrated your mics, you kind of do want to set it up like a template, so that way every time you go back, you're ready to rock. And
it doesn't always have to be the same settings, but it's a starting jumping off point.
Yeah. And you recognize this guy? This is our own Chris Lipe from Tuesdays, and it turns out he also does shows on another channel called Recording Revolution. And it's funny, when I was looking through for videos and stuff, I kept going and seeing these thumbnails, and I'm like, wow, this guy could be Chris Lipe's brother. He looks like he's got the same kind of studio. He looks like Chris. And I finally found a video that was relevant to what we're looking at, and I'm like, holy shit, that is Chris. So he's going to be talking about recording vocals and how you use your headphone.
It is indeed.
And I do agree, a lot of singers tend to use their head monitoring in their headphones the wrong way when it comes to singing. Sometimes it can get in your way if you're not monitoring properly, and he's going to get into some of that.
And some always monitor with effects on when, ideally you're hearing the clean product, not so that you're hearing what goes out to the crowd, but so that you're hearing what you need to hear to give yourself, you want to hear all the imperfections in what you're doing so that you can fix it all as you're doing it. Not to, if you have all the effects on, it'll sound great to you, but, you're also not hearing what you could be hearing to make it sound better.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of using the effects during the recording process. I mean, sometimes it's necessary, like especially with guitars, sometimes you need it in order to do the part. But more times, especially with singers, it, like you said, it gets in their way, and it doesn't necessarily get them to perform at their best. They rely on the effect more than their voice.
We'll see if we get into that at all with there.
Yeah. And then after we take a look at the monitoring, Alex Rome, he's going to talk about the secrets to vocal layering, which again, when you're capturing, this kind of leads into the next segment that we're going to go into after, which is going to be mixing. And this kind of prepares us for these next videos where we're going to look at, now you've laid down your tracks and it's time to start mixing. And like I said, this was the first channel I thought of when it was like, we're going to talk some mixing, then we are going to get in the mix in here, because he's got some of the best advice on YouTube when it comes to mixing.
Excellent.
And this particular video, the reason why I chose this one is because it's some of his best advice just summed up in one good video. I mean, you can go to specific stuff across his videos and he'll cover EQ or compression, but this is a nice general explanation to the purpose of mixing and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, the goals for sure.
And mastering.com, the channel name, I was like, okay. And the funny
Good
thing
start.
is this is actually about mixing, but the channel just covers, like, you know, the gamut, mixing and mastering, which they kind of go hand in hand, but they are separate things. And
Right.
and this one talks about something that I feel is really important when you're starting out your mix, setting the instrument levels.
Oh yeah.
That's a huge thing when you're before you get into the vocal layers and all that stuff. You really want to smooth out the instruments and how they mesh with each other.
Yeah. If you don't, because I mean, if you don't and you need to bring something up later, you're going to end up bringing up the noise with whatever it is you're trying to bring up. So the cleaner the signal you can get, and the better, you know, nice, solid, clean signal across the board. And then you have the ability to mix it however you want. You could have only the tiniest whisper of this and a booming amount of that because you have all the signal to work with. Whereas if you have only a little bit of signal and you don't get that gain in early, you have to jump through a lot of hoops to get it, if you can even get it. To work with later.
Yeah, and that's why we start with the whole recording process and the capturing process, because garbage in, garbage out. You got to make sure you get a good capture before this stuff gets easier.
Exactly.
So he's going to show
and
us.
it does make everything else that much easier.
Yeah, he's going to show us how to actually set instrument levels in a mix, and he's got a whole series. So this was just one that fit for what we're going to be talking about. And then getting back to vocals, now that we're in the mixing phase, again, how you deal with vocals is different than how you're going to deal with the instruments. And it's good to start with the instruments and get those all settled, so that way your vocals can reference the levels that you've got already established. If you start mixing the vocals before you deal with your instruments, you may not be happy with the blend and the levels you end up with.
And a lot to me depends on the style of music as well, where, you know, in certain styles of music, the vocals really are out front and the main center stage, get those vocals out front. In others, they're more kind of background, ambient, a lot of effects on them, that kind of thing. So it does depend on the style of music, but I am always a fan of having, usually you'll figure out one element, like it might be the drums, let's say, and you get the drums to whatever level you're going to have them, then you bring the other instruments to that level. Same thing can happen if you have something that's a very subtle or quiet instrument. You could start with that and say, okay, I want to not overpower that. So you start bringing things in to the point where you can still hear that one thing that you're trying not to hide and make sure it doesn't get buried, you know. And a lot of it, you know, takes tweaking back and forth, but the main thing is you have somewhere to start and as a reference, and you bring things up into it.
Yeah, I like to really calibrate the drums and the bass, and then from there the guitars. Those are the three sources that I like to get those volumes smoothed out before worrying about anything else.
Yeah. And just as a side tangent, like if you, let's say you do those steps and then you're trying to bring keys in and there's no level of keys that you can give that's going to get it into the signal because the signal was recorded low, let's say, you know, that's where, okay, now you'd say, bring everybody down 50%, bring the keys up, and now it does match. So, you know, you found where it needs to be, but you figured out where the problem was, like the keys were the problem, where they needed to be louder in the first place. And then you would have had everybody mixable up here. Whereas now you had to bring everything down to get it relative to
and
get it to work out.
And I do find it's easier to do the keys afterwards. They tend to fit in pretty well if like everything else is already taken care of.
Yeah. And again, it all comes back to clean signals, good solid signals for the recordings in the first place, for sure.
Yeah, and this one also comes from Recording Revolution, same channel that Chris was coming from, and he's going to talk about how to get vocals to sit perfectly in the mix every time, which is something that I'm constantly talking about when it comes to mixing the vocals. It is all about getting them to sit in there and in their proper place, which is usually in the front and center. And then with the backing vocals, you spread them and put them under the lead vocals. I've had this one in our watch later queue for at least a month or two. I've been waiting for to
The appropriate night to break it out.
yes, and this one worked. And now as we shift, we've got our mix all done. That's when you want to start thinking of the mastering. You don't really want to be thinking mastering while you're doing your mix. They can get in the way of each other. I prefer to just not worry about the mastering process until I've finished with the mix, because if you try to do your mastering while you're mixing, sometimes you don't end up with the results that you want, and you end up having to remix again during your mastering phase. And if you
And
do
you can end up
things right,
boxing.
you shouldn't.
And you can end up boxing yourself into a certain, pathway or a certain solution where, you aimed for this level of mastering. And then by the time you got there, like you said, it doesn't work out the way you wanted it to, but you already eliminated some other possibilities. You have to go back all the way to the mixing step again to fix it. So yeah, better to mix it well in the first place for sure.
Yeah. When I first started out,
And
like
prepare the-
when I first started out getting comfortable with mixing and mastering, I found myself a lot of times getting to that point where I thought I was done, and then having to go back and kind of scrap my mix and start all over, because everything starts to mush up if you don't do it right.
Now, the question is also, a lot of people will at that point, rather than taking that step, which takes, it takes to it, like you're not admitting defeat, but you're admitting that you have to, take a step back and redo some things, where a lot of people, they'll try to just keep fixing and refixing and making adjustments to what they already have. And if it's already broken, now you're just, throw more reverb, it'll fix it. Throw this on. Oh, wait, maybe this will mask it. Like you're trying to do other things rather than backing up and starting with that clean steps again.
Yeah.
Clean steps, good mix, and you step forward again. And if you know that even, you know how you mixed it the first time, and then you know that you didn't like what you got in the mastering stage. So now you say, okay, well, I'm going to change it a little bit to how I mixed it before. Like mix it the same way you did before, but I'll make this adjustment and bring that to the mastering phase and see how that sounds, because that might be the change that you needed that you didn't realize.
Yeah, if you're at that part where it's starting to sound mushy because you've done too much, then you either have to be able to pull back whatever made it start to get mushy, or you do have to like jump back and reassemble.
Yep.
So
indeed,
Sage Audio, they actually get the last two here. They almost got the last three, because there was two for the last one, and I had to decide which one, and I ended up going for the one that covers the most basic part of mastering, but he has a more advanced video that if you go check out, you are going to find everything about mixing and mastering on Sage Audio. It's a phenomenal resource for engineers. So here he's going to show how to prepare your mix for mastering. And our final one will be on how to master music in general. And, the steps that he goes into here, these are the things that you want to be considering when you're at the end and you're taking that whole mix and getting it ready to distribute to BandLab, SoundCloud, any platform that you're pushing to. These are the steps that you're going to want to go through to make sure that everything sounds good for these platforms.
Exactly. Kind of like a checklist.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It was meant to be another Thursday.
Every time it's meant to be another Thursday. Happy Thursday to everybody, and welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get started on another evening.
And this topic tonight was meant to be with like the last couple of weeks, we've been talking mixing and workflow, and I kind of got this idea last week where we go through some of the important effects that we deal with mixing. And the first one, no question, was reverb.
Reverb. Gotta have a lot.
And getting to know the room.
Getting to know the room and not conflicting with reverbs, because that's always an issue as well. I mean, that's something that, when you first learn about reverb, it gets really easy to fall into the trap of, I have 10 tracks, and as I put each track in, I put a track in, and then I put reverb, and then I put a track in, I put reverb, and I put a track in, and I put reverb.
And
I put reverb.
you're going to see, you're going to see some talk about that and some different philosophies on what reverbs you use, how you apply them. Let's bring these up and we'll take a look at what we're going to be looking at tonight. And yeah, we're going to start with what is reverb. And I think this is a great source for it. Isotope makes some of my most favorite plugins. They have an awesome reverb, and they're going to get into how it works, the different types, which you'll hear throughout a lot of these, plate reverbs, room reverbs, hall, and simulating those different rooms. Going to be a big part of the discussion tonight. This one's coming from Isotope Inc. They are the ones who make these plugins, and great channel to keep up with.
Yeah, and some of the magic with any of the reverbs is the timing on it, because like the certain number of milliseconds that you have it set for example, is going to sound like that size of a room. That it's just kind of magic the way your brain kind of picks up and says, oh, the room is this big because I can hear the walls that far out, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's funny because we don't always have control of our rooms, so a lot of times we're utilizing reverb to get the sound that you would want in the room if you could get into that room.
Brings cohesion, brings it all together.
Yeah, especially how you mix it, which is going to be one of the ones in the middle there. Again, if we're talking this kind of stuff, I can't resist in the mix. He has everything when it comes to mixing, and for reverb, it's a big part of the mixing process. Can't emphasize, it's the first thing I do when I start a mix. I create that reverb bus and start to get to work on the glue.
Yep.
Oh, and here's a new one.
Everybody jumps in the pool.
Yep. Mike Cole is going to talk about dealing with reverb more so on stage and, for guitar, because how you deal with reverb with guitar is different than what you might do with vocals. And in some cases with vocals, you might have exceptions on how using multiple reverbs and things like that. Whereas usually with the other instruments, it's more about that cohesion.
Yeah. Not to mention some people, they have, reverb as part of their, their character sound or their, their signature sound, let's say, coming from their amp. They're used to, being on stage, and they have, these settings and this pedal board and, this on the amp, and, they're used to filling the room with that themselves. And if they're doing that and you're trying to get a signal from it, then you'd want to be miking the amp to get that signal chain rather than trying to get it just straight from the pedal chain, for example.
And this one, not a new channel for us. Actually, Uni hooked me up with this channel a couple months back, and he's a lot like some of our other channels, covers the gamut. And this one I felt was especially important because it's what I hear on BandLab tracks a lot, is people using too much reverb or pushing it to. A lot of times I feel like they're trying to cover up their voices or, mask imperfections. And he's going to talk about avoiding that.
Yeah. Another way that happens is when you start doing the, a little tweak here, and then you keep revisiting it, and you go back 50 times, and each time you go back in, you're like, oh, it sounds even better with a little more reverb. Oh, it sounds even better with a little more reverb. Each time you do that, maybe in that session, it's sounding better and better. But if you were to sleep on it and come back and listen to it, you'd probably hear it with all that excess reverb on there as well.
Well, and you start to go ear blind to it. Your brain starts to compensate, and you don't hear as much of the reverb that you're actually putting in because you're gradually bringing it up. And then when you do come back the next morning, sometimes you're like, what the hell?
Who came in here and changed my mix? I know that when I left, it didn't sound like this.
So he's gonna help us get square on how much reverb. And like I said with guitar, uh, um, it's just as important to understand the vocal side of things. So I thought it was important to get in, some good vocal tips on reverb. It's one of the things when it comes to vocals that like you really want to get your reverb squared away. Otherwise, you could have the greatest song and mess it up with bad vocal reverb.
Yeah, and good vocal reverb is such a good thing. So yeah.
And this one's Sage Audio, which is quickly becoming like one of my favorite channels. They a whole bunch of different series that they have. Oh, and Waves Audio is going back to the plugins like Isotope. Waves is another company that like their plugins are second to none, and they have some very useful ones when it comes to mixing. And what I like with this one is, they're really going to talk about how to get the room sound no matter what room you started with.
Because you got to be able to.
Yeah. And this one was a necessity for me because when it comes to how I mix, I can't emphasize it enough. Bus mixing has changed like my approach to things. And with stuff like reverb, when you take this kind of approach, it simplifies a lot of what you're trying to do. He's going to get into like, the complications of putting reverb on every track the way a lot of, especially with BandLab, because with the BandLab editor, you don't have bus mixing. Adding different reverbs on different tracks can really mess things up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And kill your computer. So this was a new channel, and I'm liking what I'm seeing over there. Beyond the Beat, he's gonna help get us comfortable with bus mixing.
Nice.
And we got to talk about these plugins and the different ones that you might find out there. And again, Sage Audio they get two because they covered the gamut. And I liked what they're doing here is comparing what you might get for free versus cheap to like the high end expensive ones, and whether it's worth what you're paying for.
Exactly. And that's the thing is like sometimes you get the free alternatives, sometimes you see the ones that are similar or have that same idea, but a lot of times the ones that you pay for really do have, just that little bit extra to make them worthwhile. Depends on the plugin for sure.
Or in some cases they have like lexicons back in the 90s. They had a staple sound to them that made them worth buying that expensive hardware.
Yeah.
And as we wind down, we're going to talk about some alternate approaches to reverb, because when it comes to reverb, delay kind of goes hand in hand with it. And sometimes they do sort of fit the same purposes, but they are different effects. And in this one, it's got a nice view of whether you start with the reverb and then go to the delay in your signal chain, or start with the delay and then add the reverb to your echoes. And there is no right or wrong here. It's just what you're trying to accomplish.
And if you try it one way and you're like, I'm not really, don't really like the way that sounds, try switching the order of them and see what that does. Even if you're not sure what it'll do, just to see, maybe you put them in the reversed order and you change this setting here and that setting there, and all of a sudden it's something cool that you wouldn't have even thought about before. So,
and you should definitely try them both ways. Get familiar with them.
Yep.
That one comes from Learn Audio Engineering, another new channel.
Nice.
And to sum it up, we're going to get into a little bit on the delay side with the pedals, and like for you guitarists and bassists out there, uh, uh, how to choose a good delay pedal. And the channel is called reverb, so it fits. This is a great channel. They've got like used and new equipment deals, great videos on different gear, and whenever we're doing some gear horrors nights, they're probably going to be in here.
Oh yeah, we'll break out some of the pedals. We'll break out the baseballs and the bass big muff and the other ones that we have over here. Get all that. We don't have many guitar pedals up in the house here. I could get some to bring out at some point, do a little show and tell with a pedal board. But
I'm sure we got some guitarists that we could bring
yeah.
in who
Exactly.
have a whole bunch of toys.
Yep.
So we'll be looking at like, analog versus digital and multi-mode and beyond. So it's a nice variety of different approaches to how you get your delay.
Nice.
Oh, see what happens when Ange is pushing the buttons?
How did that happen? Oh.
Yes, Ange, you beat me because you pushed the button.
It happens. And how about one of these? There we go. That's what I like.
And this is our theme for tonight.
Yep. There it is.
I actually got the idea because BandLab yesterday put up a post talking about ways to asking people if they had a lot of half-done songs and what causes
and a lot of people do.
half-done songs.
Yep, a lot of different reasons. To me, at least, a lot of different reasons. But I do have a lot of half-done songs. In a lot of cases, there were covers that I started doing, and then just got like part of it done, got like half of a bass track done or half of a guitar track done, and then kind of put it on a shelf because it was not a priority to put it out there. But for original songs, that's the real question. Leaving that kind of stuff half done is you should really push those through.
Yeah, if it's a cover, then it's just like getting through the part. And usually if you're not happy with what you've done so far, then it's like, oh, do I want to like do the other half? Because you feel like you want to start over again. But when you're writing, hitting those walls when you're writing is a big challenge.
Yep. And that's the other thing is if you were doing it again with the cover scenario, if you do put it up on the shelf and just leave it there, and then 3 months later you come back and you listen to it, you might have progressed a lot instrumentally and in your production work in those 3 months. So you listen back to it and you go, man, that sounds like crap, but I could do better than that right now. And you just sit down and you do way better than that right now. And then, and then maybe that'll push you further. Otherwise, put it back on the shelf and then 3 months later, revisit it again and say, oh, now I can add a bass part, can work in like stages like that.
At this point, I'm going back to projects that I already did and finished and redoing them again just because of like everything we've been learning, this year.
Exactly. And that's awesome too.
Mix number 3.
Yep. Number 3, version 3, V3.
Well, now it's with extra music. I got the stems in there, so
yeah, I love
new
the
and
stems.
improved.
Love the stems because then I can individually listen to different parts and even just mute different parts. If I want to play the guitar part, I can just listen to it as really listen to it and focus on that one way through, and then mute that track on the next way through and try to play that part in myself and see how much of a difference there is, because there's a difference.
Yeah, and what I've been suggesting to some singers is to actually mute as much as possible and just play the like track that helps them get through. And I find that some singers sing better when they don't have all the excess noise going on and they're just focused on the piano track or the guitar track, and it helps them to get their emotion out more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
anything
then you
that
can
helps get that all together, anything that helps the performance is definitely a good thing.
Yeah, and then you can turn those tracks on afterwards and listen to them along with your voice.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I love the guide tracks that you have in there, because you can sit there and it kind of gives you where the melody line goes, so that the timing of where to what the melody line should be doing and the timing of how to get the words in, and then you can mute that part out and go from there.
Yeah, you can see at least where the melody starts. 'Cause
Mhm.
timing, some need to practice their timing.
Absolutely, a lot of people do. That's another reason why it's good to start with a bass. Like you start on bass, you're working on timing already, and timing is just kind of in what you do, so that if you then move from bass to other instruments, you're bringing that with you. Your timing from bass applies to guitar, and you'll hear it in the guitar playing of a bass player.
Yeah. Usually when I'm working on somebody else's track and adding stuff, bass. The last project I was doing with Snave, it was the bass track and the drum track. I had to turn everything else off just to center what I was going to do.
Yep. And then you build around that, and then maybe when you turn the other layers back on, there are some things that clash with whatever is now all coming together. It's all about what things need to still be in there and which things are extras that need to be re-examined, let's say.
Yeah. And I did run through some of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight as I was trying to come up with the keyboard parts, because it's not just lyricists that writer's block affects every type of. Matter of fact, the first couple of videos isn't just going to talk about writer's block. What I found as I was searching for this, the term that they use is creative block.
Yeah.
And it applies to authors, it applies to artists, visual artists, musical artists. You'll notice a couple of these aren't necessarily talking just about songwriting. Specifically, this first one. This first one is actually towards the authors, but
right.
Ange is constantly saying, musicians, we're storytellers, and the things she's going to talk about and the suggestions she gives to authors who are dealing with writer's block apply just as much to songwriters. And in some cases, the suggestions could really help you when you're working on a song trying to tell the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that one.
And creative block, that is a better name for it.
Yeah, it made sense as I was searching. It helped me to narrow in a little bit more on the different things I was looking for, because I was trying to see it from different perspectives. The lyricist and singers have different obstacles than the instrumentalists. And Reedsy, she's an author, and starting with her, she talks about like the three types. She really goes into like, what is writer's block and the types of writer's block you might have.
Nice.
And this was another one that I thought was good to start with because it comes from the personal level. Annie Dang talks about like how she took a break from songwriting and like almost went a year where she got stuck in a block, and she goes into like how she approached it. And one thing you'll notice with a lot of these, when I was searching, there's a lot of videos out there about how to overcome it, but it was tough to find some that talk about how to prevent it, how to avoid it.
Makes sense.
And this was a new channel that I came across that I really like because it's all about creators and create better. I mean, the title for the channel is fitting because he talks about it from like, video production, music production as well, and, making content in general, which nowadays that's what we do.
Yep. And I love his background. I know you do too.
Oh yeah. I was sold on that. I was like, oh, he's a comic lover. Oh, and Nicola, this one has 3 great techniques on how to avoid. And that's, as I was going through it, that's what I really wanted to find some tips on. So she hits the hammer on the head with things to do to avoid getting into that stuck situation. You're going to hear a lot of talk about like motivation, and striving for perfection, these kinds of things that tend to cause the writer's block.
Mm-hmm.
And then Music by Maddie, one that we came across, I think a few months ago with one of our other topics. And he's looking at it more from exercising, which is same as avoiding like your creative muscle. If you do some of these things he suggests, that's another way of avoiding getting those obstacles. Oh, and Sensei.
Sensei.
I told you I would get him in anytime he fit the topic, and that's what I love about his channel. Because like we went there for the guitar, but we stayed because I mean he covers songwriting and music theory and everything else on top of it. He's just a well-rounded channel with information for all types of musicians. And he's
Excellent stuff.
gonna show how to conquer it.
Yep. Nice.
Oh, and even the big guys will have writer's block and crafty music tips. Another cool channel that like loving the library over there. He's gonna talk about how like John Lennon kind of dealt with it with one of his songs where the way that he got around it, very creative approach.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes to show you like even the music legends deal with it. This is something every creative person out there will deal with in making things.
Most definitely.
Yep. And then Curtis King TV, loving this channel too. He's one who's built up a nice community. He's got a lot of good information, and you join this community, you will have musical friends. Curtis King TV is going to give you a cure for music producers for beat blocks. Because beat makers too probably run into this more than some of the other creative types out there, because eventually your beats start to sound the same.
Right. This one sounds too much like this, and then you tweak it. Oh, now it sounds too much like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to mention that. In the Roan Zone, another freshie, songwriting, music production tutorials. I love those channels. And for this one, it's for the lyricists. The one that's probably the most common when it comes to like getting the words out, the words you want to say, the words that fit with the music. He's going to cover on how to write lyrics, and this is a whole segment that he has, but this one starts part 1 with writer's block.
Right. On point for tonight.
Yeah. And to go from the lyricism with rap songs, and again, one that's probably very common on the lab. You got a lot of freestylers and rappers who whether they get into a writer's block or they get into a comfort zone where they don't change their style, they just continuously keep doing the same thing, and that is a form of writer's block.
Right.
And this
falling into a rut or repetition.
Yeah, this is a channel that we have gone to before because it's called How to Rap, and we have gone here. And to finish it off, I almost picked a couple of videos from Joy here, because one of the things they're going to talk about is like the lack of an idea. That's one big cause for sometimes why you hit the wall on what you're trying to do. And I ended up going with this one versus the other video. She actually made the second video after this one because one of her last suggestions was write about yourself. And that's just one of the suggestions she's going to give in this one. But for here, she's going to give you 50 song ideas that you could write about. Like if you're not feeling an idea and you're wondering like what can I write about, she's going to blast out 50 good suggestions. And
Nice. Pick one out of the hat and then start from there. Yeah.
well, and she started with love and sex, which fits like so many songs.
Yeah. For songwriting, absolutely. It's right in there.
Yeah, so she got my attention.
Nice. Very cool. Little ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some band lab clips.
Now for me, that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out. Kind of.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can stretch. With this AI, like stretching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.